All right. Our microphone's good. Wait, it's testing.
Hey, Kevin, or the mic's on. Kevin or Tammy, tell us if you can hear us, will you please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
All right, everybody, it's 4 o'clock. We will, I will now call to order this Grand County Board of Equalization meeting. Present are Commissioners Kevin Walker on Zoom, Evan Clapper, Bill Winfield, Tricia Dean, Mike McCurdy, Mary McGann, and myself, Jacques Hadler, as well as our clerk, Gabrielle Wojtek. Our first order of business with the Board of Equalization is Commission member disclosures. Any member of this body have anything they need to disclose concerning the Board of Equalization agenda item? That's right. Okay. First action item is the approval of minutes as they are presented in the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented in the agenda.
Thank you, Mary.
I'll second that.
All right, so I have a motion from Commissioner McGann, second from Commissioner Dean. All those in favor of approval of the minutes this is from the December 3rd meeting. Raise your hands. Say aye.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, passes unanimously. All right, our second agenda item is the approval of the hearing officer recommendations as found in the agenda. Is there, Gabe, are you presenting this?
Yeah, there were a handful of files that didn't make it to my desk in time for approval from the last meeting. And since we were opening it back up for approval, the treasurer helped to identify a couple inconsistencies in what had been processed through BOE. So we just made sure to include all relevant corrections in this packet of 11 approvals. And the nature of them with regards to the hearing officer having seen them and recommending the appeal determination as you see before you in the packet, it remains unchanged.
Great, thank you, Gabe. Evan?
I would move to approve the proposed Board of Equalization hearing officer's recommendations resulting from the taxpayer valuation appeals during the 2024 equalizations.
Thank you. Second from Commissioner Winfield. Any further discussion on this item? This would be the last one of the year, right, Gabe? Thanks. All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin. Passes unanimously. We've come to the end of our Board of Equalization general business, so I will now adjourn the Board of Equalization meeting at 4:03 on December 17th. And I will now open the regular Thompson Springs Special Service Fire District meeting December 17th at 4:03. Our first, all present are the same as who are present at the Board of Equalization meeting. Our first order of business is citizens to be heard, and this is citizens to be heard just on the Thompson Springs Special Service Fire District. If there's anyone here who would like to be heard on that, on the Thompson Springs Fire District, you may come forward, raise your hand, and I'll call on you. Anyone here to be heard on Thompson? Anyone on Zoom to be heard on Thompson? Looks like no one's raising their hand on Zoom, so I'll assume there's no citizens to be heard on this. We are up to our consent agenda, which today consists of the approval of meeting minutes from both the October 15th and the November 17th regular meetings, as well as the ratification of payment of bills. In Thompson, those total bills are the amount of $5,233.50 and total payroll in the amount of $1,984.48 for a combined bills and payroll in the amount of $7,217.98.
So moved with just a quick correction that it was November 19th. You said the 17th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
right.
okay.
Yes. Right. So motion made by Commissioner Hedin, second by Commissioner McCurdy to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We're on to our fire chief's report, and that was included in our packet. Is there anyone who cared to?
I can read that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Mark Markham was, I believe, on an incident. Is that correct? So could not be here this evening. So this is his report. For December 17th, 2024 incidences. On November 11th, the brush fire at I-70 mile marker 198. That was a false alarm. On November 27th, vehicle rollover on I-70, mile marker 187. On December 4th, semi-truck accident at Crescent Junction. On December 4th, chest pain in Thompson. On December 5th, standby for semi-truck removal, Crescent Junction. Equipment, all apparatus is in good working order. Facilities, heaters both working, water heater out of service, working on getting it repaired and replaced. Training every Saturday from 9:30 to 11:30.
Thank you, Trish.
You bet.
Okay, looks like we don't have any new or old business or future considerations. So
I had one future consideration, I just wanted to bring up is the fact that we're not, seeing or approving a budget for the Thompson Springs Special Service Fire District. And it sort of was brought to my concern because if we're not sort of completing the annexation and officially dissolving this district this year, then it would have been customary to move forward into the new year with a new approved budget. I think the implication is that we are going to be dissolving this district very early in the new year, and the annexation agreement includes an escrowed amount to cover any expenses for the fire district. So an effective budget of zero or no budgetary concerns is definitely the assumption here. And I did reach out to the state auditor's office because I did want to sort of make sure that we would be on the up and up and not out of compliance necessarily, for this district and, for however long it might need to operate in the new year without an approved budget, given all the surrounding circumstances. I haven't heard back on that advice yet, but I just wanted to read into the record that counsel has been sought and that this is the situation kind of that we're in at the present.
that's great. Thank you, Gabe, for clarifying all that. And in light of that, this is likely our last Thompson Special Service Fire District meeting. Of this body. All right.
Wow, now.
There was a functioning board when I was elected.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, for a
So
while.
we took it on for like a month or two.
And here we are. All right.
We could never get anybody to apply for the board.
All right, it is 4:08, so I will now adjourn our Thompson Springs Special Service Fire District meeting. And with that, I will reconvene our regular Grand County Commission meeting at 4:08, and we will start as usual with our, actually, all commissioners present are the same who are here when we start the meeting at 2:30. I'll rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is one nation, under God,
Next up is citizens to be heard. This is our regular citizens to be heard session. We'll have another session as close to 6 o'clock as we can make it. So if you're here to make a comment, please raise your hand and I will invite you forward, and you just introduce yourself and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Dave Bogner, retired businessman, avid river runner. Thank you all for what you do. You've been working on the King's Bottom project. I just wanted to point out this project is a disaster waiting to happen. I'm a river runner and have run this river since 1976. Some years there's less water, some years there's more, some years there's a lot. This foolish development will flood in the future. The definition of a bottomland, which King Bottom is an area by a river that floods seasonally. Every campground on King's Bottom was closed last spring due to flooding. Last year was below normal high water. If this folly comes to pass, it will flood in the future and be destroyed. And the citizens of this county are going to be on the hook to mitigate that. I have a second comment, and that is that you are all elected to a nonpartisan position. You represent the citizens of Grant County. Not your own point of view, not the point of view of any political party or developer. Keep this in mind as you do your job. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dave. I would, anyone else in the chamber who's here to make a comment? Pete.
name is Pete Gross. I'd like to echo what Dave said and add just a little more. If these guys, the developers of King Creek property, apparently, they've started building up the floodplain and they seem to think they've got that all figured out. Anybody who's studied fluid mechanics knows that no, they don't have it figured out. It's much more complex than that. There are no simple solutions to solving basic issues like the floodplain. They don't know what they're talking about. They have good legal opinions perhaps, but they don't have any facts on their side. It's just, as Dave said, it's an unmitigated disaster waiting to happen if they go forward with the development. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else here who is prepared to make comment? Let's go to Zoom. Does it look like we have anyone on Zoom, Quinn? Yep. All right, one last call for comment in the chambers. All right, our next order of business are presentations. And the first one I would welcome forward the Utah Attorney General's office. Yeah. Please do, Jameson. Yeah.
So
you might introduce yourself to folks to begin with.
I'll let these guys talk, but
Okay.
the Utah Attorney General's office is here to present an award. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Is right here okay?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Hope you guys are able to hear me okay. And thank you for the opportunity, or thank you for this time that you guys have allowed for us. Just by way of introduction, I guess my name is Sete Aulai. I'm one of the section chiefs from the Attorney General's office. I am also the commander for the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force for our state. Here is my bodyguard. He wanted to make sure that I arrived safely. I'm just kidding. This is a Colo de los Santos. He's one of my region supervisors for the ICAC task force as well. I won't take much of your guys' time, but I feel that it is appropriate that we come here in person to recognize one of your guys' fine deputies within this agency. Like I said, I'm the commander for the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Utah's ICAC is one of 61 national task forces in our country. Some states, given their size, may have more than one ICAC, such as California or Texas or Florida. But our state, we have one. And the Attorney General's office has been designated by the Department of Justice back in DC to be the lead agency for our state. I have the incredible opportunity to work with fine detectives and fine agents, investigators across this great state of ours, from Logan all the way down to St. George, from Tooele all the way out here to Grand County. It's an absolute privilege to be able to work with so many different officers, detectives, agents from many different agencies across our state. Our state, obviously I'm biased. I believe our ICAC is the best, or the #1 ICAC in our country. It is a very robust task force that fights vigorously, diligently, and aggressively to find those who hurt our children. The mission of the ICAC task force is very, very simple. We save kids. Literally. We literally save kids. There is no other task force like ours where you literally can see the fruits of your labor. You see those, you're able to put handcuffs on those who hurt children. You're able to take children who are being hurt, being sexually abused, enticed, exploited, and put them in a better situation. ICAC does that. And you guys, I don't know how well versed or how knowledgeable everyone is here about ICAC, but I'm absolutely certain everyone here has read one of our cases, whether it's a case that happens in Box Elder County or a case that happens in Salt Lake County. It's all ICAC, and I'm certain all of you guys have read those. Utah's ICAC has over 200 dedicated investigators to the task force. Of the 200, They represent 86 different agencies, and that's on every level, federal, state, and local level. And we are in 20 of the 29 counties in our state. It's incredible to see the dedication that each investigator, dedication that each detective has, and the heart and effort that they put in to fight for children. It's incredible. How can you argue with the mission of ICAC? How can you argue with what these fine investigators, men and women, do day in and day out to go in and put handcuffs on those who are hurting children? Tonight, we come here to recognize one of your guys' fine deputies, who's now a sergeant. As you guys have heard me say, there are over 200 officers or agents or detectives. I mean, everyone has different titles from the agency that they're from, but there's over 200 of them who are part of this task force from 86 different agencies. As you can imagine, it's very hard to decide on an individual to hand out this type of award to. And that fine individual is from the Grant County Sheriff's Office. And I'd ask that you hold your applause just a little bit as I talk about Sergeant Landon Levitt. And in just over 2 years to date, I believe it was in December of 2022, is when Sheriff Wiggins signed the memorandum of understanding between Grant County Sheriff's Office and the Utah Attorney General's Office to become an affiliate with the ICAC task force. Since that day, Grant County has been a phenomenal affiliate agency. And they immediately assigned, at the time, it was Detective Levitt. And then they've assigned others since then. But Detective Levitt has been a true hero and an example in ICAC. And it's not just here within this immediate area in Grant County, but it's statewide, what Detective Levitt has done. His dedication, his efforts, his heart that he has put in to these type of investigations is unspeakable. As you guys can imagine, ICAC work is very, very difficult. Not even every officer can be a part of this unit, this task force, because of the type of material that we're exposed to. As you guys can imagine, looking at a child being hurt, pictures and videos, and listening to those sounds, listening to the video, that's hard. That's hard to do. But we have fine detectives, officers just like Detective Levitt, who doesn't care about any of that. He just wants to make sure to put handcuffs on those who perpetuate the demand for child sex abuse material. I'm grateful for Sergeant Levitt. I'm grateful for his dedication to fulfill the mission of the task force. Now, this award that we're going to give Sergeant Levitt, it's called the Investigator of the Year. Now, you guys hear Investigator of the Year, oh gosh, that means he took on a lot of cases. No, he actually didn't. No. That means that there are a lot of cases that are coming to the Grant County Sheriff's Office. No, there aren't. No. That's actually not what we look for in awarding this type of award. It's the dedication, it's the type of work that they do. It's not necessarily by stats. Because if we were going by stats, we would award this to a detective along the Wasatch Front, because that's where the vast majority of ICAC cases are, is along the Wasatch Front. But Detective Levitt, given his diligent work and his heart that he has given to ICAC work, has earned him this award. I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful that Sheriff Wiggins has still allowed him to still be on the task force, even though he's been promoted. still keep them here, please. That'd be great. But it's not only with the work that Detective Levitt has done, it's also the support that he has within this agency and within this county. His colleagues within his agency has helped him in many of the cases that have come out of this county. The support that he's had from his administration, from Sheriff Wiggins and Lieutenant Similek, has helped him fulfill or helped him solve many of these complex cases. One of the stats that I do want to point out to you all is that Utah's ICAC has rescued and identified 126 children this year in our state. 2 of those came from this county. Now, if it was just one, you guys would ask me, that'd be great. 126 children have been rescued in this state. 2 of them came from this county. And that is by the efforts of Sergeant Levitt, the support of his administration, the support of his colleagues that has earned him this award. I'm grateful for the Grand County Sheriff's Office. As you guys know, the Attorney General's office, we're out in Salt Lake. It's a 3-hour drive. I just did it. It's a 3-hour drive to come out here. And I'm grateful to have strong affiliates like the Grand County Sheriff's Office, where we just know, assign a case to them and they'll run with it. By their example, 2 other agencies, neighboring agencies, have signed on to the ICAC task force because of the dedication of this agency in this task force. I'm grateful for the Grand County Sheriff's Office. I'm grateful for the support of the task force from Sheriff Wiggins, from Lieutenant Similek, and of course, the example of Sergeant Levitt and all the colleagues and all the other detectives within this agency. There is no lack of ICAC work within this county. There's internet here, so there's likely to be an ICAC case in this county. Grateful to have this agency to lead in this area of the state. So without further ado, if you guys will all join me in congratulating Sergeant Landon Levitt for being the Investigator of the Year for the Utah ICAC Task Force.
Oh, thank you for your time.
Thank you, and congratulations, Sergeant Levitt. We're very proud to have your work. Yeah. He was tricked into coming. Yes. Great. All right, that was awesome. Next up, we have our 2024 Grand County Years of Service and Thanks for Service. And presenting this is going to be our HR Director, Tess Barger. Welcome, Tess.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much. So every year we take this opportunity at the end of the year to celebrate the staff with us based on number of years of service. We do it in increments of 5. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and jump in. We'll call out each individual that's celebrating one of those markers, and then I'll go ahead and open up the floor to either any department heads that might be here who would like to say a few words about their staff, or if any of the commissioners would like to shout anyone out. And so with that being said, I don't know if I would be able to, I'll just go ahead and okay. Unless anybody who's hooked up would be able to perhaps.
There we go.
All right, thank you very much, Quinn. So something that I often say and often will say moving forward is that our staff are our greatest investment. Of course, we talk a lot about that within a specific context this time of year with budget season. But again, I want to always ensure that we focus on the fact that we wouldn't be able to serve our community without the people that come to work every single day. So without further ado, I'm going to put my scrolling down just a little bit more. So out of our active transportation and trails department, which is one of our newer departments, I think it's absolutely wonderful how much retention they've had based on that. We have Maddie Logowitz, Tyson Swayze, Fred Wilkinson, Jane Path, and John Spear, all having served 5 years with us. Moving into our next department, the assessor's office, we're celebrating Debbie Swayze, having served with the county for 25 years. And of course, as one of our elected, she'll be with us for another 4 at least. So that's really, really incredible. And there are a number of folks that are celebrating over 20 years with us this year. Out of the building department, we have Lisa Siniceros, having served 5 years with us. At Canyonlands Regional Airport, we have Tara Collins and Barb Tucker, both having served 5 years. And then our airport director, Tammy Howland, celebrating her 10-year anniversary this year. And then in the clerk auditor's office, we have Gabe Wojtek, who has worn more than one hat, having been at the county, but we're very grateful that he wears the many, many hats that he does within the clerk auditor's office now. From our courthouse facility team, we have Billy Simpson celebrating 5 years, and then our supervisor, who would we be absolutely lost without, Sean, celebrating 10 years of service. And within the Family Support Center, we have Elizabeth Chase celebrating 5 years as well. And out of IT, another department that we would certainly be lost without this person is Matt Siniceros, who with 15 years carries so much institutional knowledge at this point, and has carried that team single-handedly the majority of his time here. Out of the Grand County Public Library, we have Colleen Jarrett, Christina Williams, Skylar Nickel, and Chelsea Jensen, all having served 5 years. And our roads department, who inarguably has the best retention of any department actually within the county, they do an incredible job of maintaining the pride and morale of that department. We have Colby Burgess celebrating 10 years, and then Bill Jackson, who definitely blew everybody out of the water this year with his record of 35 years with the county, which is absolutely awesome. Yeah, I think when a lot of us here at the county think of the county, we think of Bill and what he brings to this team. In Sand Flats, we have Jill Card celebrating 5 years, and then we have another really, really huge milestone with Joe having served 25 years, which is absolutely amazing. And then we'll move into the sheriff's department. We have Michael Palmer, or Mike. So Mike Palmer and Ronnie McCurdy both celebrating 5 years. We have Josh Honor celebrating his 10-year mark. And then we have Eve Brannon, who's been with us for 25 years. Out of the jail, we have Amy Wiggins celebrating her 5 years, and then Connie Cook also celebrating 5 years. And as for our SAR department, we have Carly Webster, Amra Hubbard Harrison, Kate Finley, Maggie Nielsen, and John Marshall, all having served 5 years with us. For our surveyor's office, we have Lucas Blake, having served 5 years as one of our electeds. And in the treasurer's office, we have Mary Lou Lopez, who brings true joy and a smile to, I'm pretty sure, everybody's face every day that she interacts with them, having served 5 years with us. So thank you again to everybody that serves here. Everyone is incredibly valuable, regardless of what milestone you hit, but I do think it's particularly important and special to celebrate these 5-year marks. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it on to anybody that would like to say a few words about one of the folks that we recognize tonight.
All right, anyone like to come up and speak to any of these awards or people who've been with the county for so long?
Well,
All right, Andrea.
track. But just want to say I'm grateful to these folks, that I'm so grateful to have such a long-term staff at Sand Flats. really helped me over the years.
Awesome.
So, and
Yeah, you have
helped
great
our
staff.
visitors. And everything worked smoothly, so.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Bill?
Way to go, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll take this opportunity to just say thank you to Colby. 10 years in the shop and finally convinced him that, yeah, you need to be a mechanic too. It took me a little while to do that. He's been growing and learning, getting his skills and abilities. He's promoted now recently to mechanic too. So that's great. That's what we like to see. People moving up in-house and learning, growing like that. So I just appreciate him a lot. And our number one assets, right, are our employees. So that's a good segue right into this. I want to note, and I was going to do this later, but I'm here now. You guys are going to be talking about this subdivision approval that the state's kind of put on the county and all counties, municipalities. I would take a hard look at that, and I think that it just from being in the program and doing the reviews and things like that, working with planning and zoning, and with these changes the state's handing down, I think it would behoove the county to authorize or approve the zoning administrator, to have authority over that. Especially with the time constraints now placed on them, it's just really move things quicker, I think, for all involved. Not only the planning and zoning, but the other departments that are going to be reviewing things. And then, of course, the applicants, it'll just help move things along. And your county's employees, are really good assets. And I think it's a good opportunity to use them.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right. We also have a couple of elected officials who are going to be leaving office at the end of the year. The first one, this is John Cordes, has been in the recorder's office, I think, for over 30 years. I think over half of those is the elected recorder. And Quinn, you could, if you know the exact dates. And I did invite John to be here today, and it looks like he wasn't able to make it. But we definitely want to express our appreciation to John for his years of service to Grand County. We actually have a plaque made up to honor him. Actually, it says it right here: 1993 to 1911 as the deputy recorder, or 2011, and 2011 to 2024 as the Grand County recorder. So thank you, John, and best in whatever you plan to do after your 32 years at Grand County. To Quinn, you can pass that along to John when able. And the next one, we actually had last meeting, we honored Commissioner Walker with his years of service. He has been a Grand County Commissioner for one term and is stepping down. And our next commissioner, who has served 2 terms, is Evan Clapper over there holding the other end of the dais down. Evan, you were the only commissioner I knew when I first started running, really, and I remember asking you to kind of give me the deal a little bit, and you didn't give it to me. You were just like, there's not much I could say. You'll figure it out. But I remember when Evan ran in 2016. I was on the periphery of his campaign, very, very, very far on the periphery, but it's been 8 years. You've been the chair. You've contributed a ton to this body, and it's been extremely enjoyable working with you for the last 4 years. So thank you, for me, the last 4 years. But thank you so much for your service to Grand County, and I'll let any other commissioners who would like to say something please chime in.
It's been 8 years for us. So thank you. One of my favorite years was the year you were chair. You brought such great levity at times to when things would be getting tight and kind of intense. You had the ability to just kind of put a little joke or a little, and it was really helpful. It made things move smoother, and I was disappointed when you chose to not be chair again, but I totally understood why. It's very, very hard, and when you have a full-time job, it's almost impossible. So thank you, and your ability to, think outside the box has been so helpful. I mean, there's been times that you say something I hadn't even considered, and I go, oh, wow, wow. And your ability, you'll be missed. You'll be very much missed. I really enjoyed working with you.
Whether in agreement or opposition, I've always respected that you've been willing to fight. I really I look up to being that. I like that you're willing to be the dissenting opinion no matter.
It's, this position's not hard or not easy. I didn't say that correctly. Not easy. And I think it takes people that are willing to serve their community, and I really respect that. And so I can't thank you enough for serving your community. I hope you enjoy your time off.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a privilege working with you. I appreciate the fact that you definitely have a total different outlook on things sometimes than 6 other members of this body, and it isn't really a partisan outlook. It's just a way that you look at it. I appreciate it. I think if we could just go back to Mary a little bit more gushy, and then you'd be needing those tissues there, right? As you get ready to say your goodbye, and I'm not making fun of you, Mary.
I know.
You did a good job of showing
You
it.
get very attached to the people you work with.
You bet. We appreciate you. We really do.
It's like, Kevin?
Yeah, I think when I first met Evan, it was 2016, and he was deciding whether or not to run. And I remember the first remark he made to me, or one of the first, was that, if he decides to do something, then he resolves to do it in kind of a first class way. He probably used a catchier slogan, the first class, but that was the gist of it. And 8 years later, I think you have. It's a great job. My friends will confirm that there were many years where I characterized you as my favorite commissioner. So yeah, it's been great sitting next to you these last few years. And I think, we know that Mike has an unassailable record as the person with the most seconds, but I think Evan probably has the record as having the most lone dissenting votes. And
Yes.
and I think almost all of them are principled. I think they're all pretty defensible, and I think that actually reflects really well on you, that you kind of do what you think's right, and you're not, you don't go along with the crowd when doing so would be inappropriate. So anyway, thanks, great job. Have fun within the next chapter.
Right. Anything you want to say, Evan, or you don't have to if you don't want to go. Oh yeah, absolutely. Before that, Andrea, you wanted to come up and
Supposed to be the stewardship committee meeting, but I have it in time. So, boy, everyone said such lovely things. Sandflats has been very fortunate to have had you as the Grant County liaison these last 8 years. We've appreciated your common sense guidance and input with all the projects we completed over this time frame, from 4x4 trailhead improvements to new trails to campground improvements, and the production of several educational videos, and to budget oversight. You've been a valuable part of the team, and you will be missed in this role. I would like to present this plaque to commemorate your time on the committee, and also an annual pass. So,
all right, you're on the spot now, Evan.
I should have anticipated this. I didn't really think of much to say. I think kind of my running joke that isn't really so much a joke as I got into this because there was people were looking for someone to run in my district, and in my mind it was almost like jury duty. It was like, in order for this experiment democracy to work, you kind of have to step up, and I think that I always valued the model where it was just kind of regular people, and it was just average Joes that were up here serving. And so I was willing to take a turn, and I think it's been great. I think we got a lot done, and I really feel uncomfortable taking the credit because it really is a lot of the department heads and the employees and the volunteers, the commissions and the committees, the advisors, and they just carry the ball the whole way, the staff and everyone. I just get to take the heat for the kudos, but so, kudos to everyone else that really makes the magic happen.
All right, thanks. And with that, we have a plaque for you also. Here you go. Add that to your trophy wall. Okay, thanks.
That comes with a pass. You can come in here anytime you want. Yeah.
All right. Well, and thanks, Kevin. Also, we honored Kevin at the last meeting, but not to forget about his service as well. So, Kevin Walker, Commissioner Evan Clapper, and Recorder John Cordes. Thanks for your service. All right, we will now move on. We have one department report, and that is a roads department update from Bill Jackson, who is our roads department head.
Bill Jackson, Orange County Roads, thanks for your time, and I'll keep it really short. It's just kind of a FYI type stuff. Been working out at the Utah Rapid Park, collaborating with those folks out there to get some of the interior roads and spaces and whatnot, mag chloride. Just an agreement. They paid for the mag and the application on the Willow Spring portion of the gravel portion of County Road. And we prepped all the rest of it for them inside the park. So that started today. Should wrap it up tomorrow. So in case somebody says, what are you guys doing in the park? That's what we're doing in the park. Also, we're working on, we haven't got into it real deep, but as you remember, from the flooding, it wiped off that bike path asphalt just north of Arches.
Yeah.
That wash needs cleaned out underneath that bridge, and we've got to go downstream, end up into the park. So we've got a lot of permitting, I'm assuming, to do for that. No sense of doing it if we can't get it cleaned out down below. So working on that in case somebody asks what we're doing out there. Also, I've been approached by Moab Irrigation Company to help them out on their diversion on the Mill Creek. I don't really have a problem with that. I think right now what that scope for the road department and is just hauling initially about I think 100 cubic yards or somewhere around there to get them ramped down there, and then they'll have somebody in there doing some work, and then hauling probably 1,000 cubic yards or more once the project gets rolling. But the haul's real short. It's coming off that Abbey Subdivision block where all that pit run is. And that's my understanding. There's permitting, I think, in the process right now. I don't have an update on that, but I wanted everybody to know what's going on there. Those funding will come from the general fund money that you all give the road department. And so I want to make that clear. We're not spending B road money on non-B road projects.
What area do they service?
I'm sorry, what?
The irrigation group, which
Moab Irrigation.
but where do they service?
Their service area?
Yeah.
I don't know 100% what that is,
Okay.
but they're one of the oldest irrigation companies around, and I don't think I think they're a nonprofit. Somebody could probably enlighten me on that.
The diversion, I mean, they're not helping out anywhere else. They're not.
Yeah. So it's yeah. So they have that diversion that got blew out from the storm, the floods in Mill Creek there. So there's a heads up there. Also, the law enforcement approached me for the gun range that got wiped out several times. Access road to it. Over the years, we've we've, worked on that for them too, but, you know, the last few years have been excessive and I suggested maybe they move the road to higher ground and Sitley approved that, thought that would be workable, so I developed myself another project. And you're gonna try to get that done over the winter. But that also will be, from that general fund money. So that's going into the gun range. All the law enforcement folks use that gun range, by the way. You don't know. Yeah, I debated on talking about this one, but I need to. So Cane Creek Road. In light of the activities with the flat grant, non-existent and all that stuff, well, we've got to get some work done on that. And one of the things I'm going to do, hopefully, quickly, is start potholing and see what kind of, we need some new culverts in certain areas there. Mainly it's from around the portal area, towards Moonflower and where all those shoulders keep washing off. And I'm gonna figure out, you know, do some potholing, find the gas line, any other utilities, see how many big rocks were in the way, those kind of things, see what kind of culverts we can get in there. And then get that done. And then of course we'll have to probably figure out how we're gonna top that asphalt, you know, with some new asphalt. So get down, you know, approximately a mile forward from the portal area. And that's what my game plan is. In case you see us out there, we're not doing it for anybody but the road department and the general public. All right.
Thanks for the update, Bill. And also I want to congratulate you on that super smooth section of pavement out on Mill Creek. That went from being about the worst place to ride my bike in the county to about the best with all the bike.
But you got to get the city smooth on.
I know that was mostly, but you definitely came through and paved that county piece. So appreciate it. All right, we don't have any other agency or department reports today, so we'll move on to our commission general reports. And since it's Evan's last commission meeting, I'll start it off with him.
All right, I met with the Canyonlands Care Center. I think the big thing worth sharing with this body is they are considering putting in for a CIB planning grant. So that's a different pool than the usual big CIB grants, but that would be planning around MAPS campus. And I think the application just goes to the CERTA administrators, but I just kind of want to put that on people's radars that that would probably be happening next year. Since we got these two here, I don't want to steal their thunder, but with Sand Flats, we got a little feedback about the raise grant and that not coming through this year. And I think my big takeaway was just that that's a competitive grant. There was other projects that looked slicker and got picked over ours. So there wasn't a lot of feedback on room for improvement. It was more just somebody else beat us to the punch. And then also there was some discussion from some of the citizen board members about safari projects for the spring. So people are starting to think about that around Sand Flats. The cemetery, we had our hearing for the 25 budget. Surprisingly, no citizens came.
Oh, so surprising.
And that got approved, and that budget is just no increases there. And same with EMS, there was a hearing. There was a full meeting with some final year-end business. Their budget currently does not include contributions from us, and so hopefully when those they kind of have the plans ready, but they're not counting their chickens before they hatch. So I was trying to reassure them that those would be there, but their credit, they didn't want to budget with money that they didn't have. And I think that that's all I have since our last meeting.
Great, thanks, Evan. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so I had a meeting with the CIB, which is just kind of preliminary to kind of get into the groove of what'll be taking place up there that I attended. Also had a meeting with the Utah Film Alliance and then also attended their 50th year anniversary celebration that they had. So I happened to be up at Salt Lake and so dropped in on that for a few minutes anyway, half an hour. And not so many people you know, but a lot of people in film. So it was quite interesting and fun. Let's see, I also attended the new commissioner orientation for Brian and Melody as well as for Mr. Tyner with Jacques. And then just a report on another one. We did receive the NRCS grant for the work out on Heaven and Heather. And I don't know if I mentioned that before, but it is a $3.3 million grant for that work. And it's a 75-25, so there will definitely be a match. And I'm looking into seeing if any of that can be grant funded, that match, but no answers as of yet. And that's really all I think I've got.
So is that for the culvert return?
I think the culverts will actually come from Bill. I believe this is the stream work to make the, I don't know if they're retention ponds or detention ponds. I don't remember which, but there's several property owners that are going to kind of join in and give easements to be able to build some retention along there to mitigate that flooding.
Okay, significant grant. All right, Trish.
I just had a couple meetings. I had a planning commission meeting. A couple things I want to point out. They did have approved an appointment of a new planning, or I shouldn't say new planning commissioner, but they made a recommendation that Aaron Lindbergh be approved for another term with the planning commission, and that is in our packet. And then I do want to thank Steve Evers. He has completed his term and he is not interested in running again. He said he's got a lot of other things going on. So I want to thank Steve Evers for the time that he put into the planning commission, because I know he did a lot during his term. And just as far as they just had some discussions prompted by Aaron regarding workforce and affordable housing. So that was a really vibrant discussion. And then just looking into the future, looking at our future code revision, which will happen in 2025. So that's really, really something to look forward to. I had a meeting with the Conservation District. Jim Bocut came from Department of Ag, which was awesome that he came down. He's meeting with every conservation district. One of the things that he pointed out was, you know, kind of holistically within the Department of Ag, they're really looking at beginning to cater to small farms within the state and understanding that those are really kind of the ones that are producing food for our state as far as, yeah, in state. And the other thing with the Conservation District, there's going to be a soil health workshop. They do it every year in February. That will be held at the Grand Center. And Utah State University, starting on January 16th, is having a Master Gardener course. And so I encourage all to join that if you're interested. That's it for me.
Thanks, Trish. Mike.
Attended a Grant County Recreation Special Service District meeting, mostly end of year financials, and grant awards, going into, special event grant awards going into 2025. Spoke a little over, just the expansion of getting word out that these grants are, being awarded for the grant application process. And that's ongoing into 2025. So
Those are the regular recreation grants. So it's not sports, special event grants, but
there's a mix.
Oh, okay.
There's recreation grants and there's the special event grants on them.
So the rec board is granting money to special events.
Yeah, to try to any that lead towards which way localized people.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
local, yeah. So it's just a bit on that.
All right, is that it for you, Mike?
Yeah.
Great. Eric?
I attended the Canyon Country Partnership meeting and the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands. They're reworking their cooperative wildfire management system with that counties and other agent entities use to opt into the state fire resources and funding on potential fires. And new requests for the amount of mitigation and preparedness work are being communicated to counties and other municipalities. Luckily, some counties are going to have to put in a lot more money towards mitigation, but Grand County isn't one of those. Partly because our fire issues have been fairly quiet for the last few years since fire on the mountain. And it's been a quiet fire season all in all in southeastern Utah. And they are currently burning piles in Willow Basin. The Division of States and Parks and Recreation, they broke a new ground on a trail system on the far east rim of Dead Horse Point, and the trail system includes a historic section of cable, which is fairly interesting. So I'm looking forward to see going on that trail.
So that's in the park. Yeah.
Yes. Their Thanksgiving visitation was up 15%, and their year visitation was up 3%. Construction is scheduled to be completed this month at the Utah Raptor State Park. There will be items to, small things to get done, but they will be done. And they're hoping to have the celebration for the opening when the weather's a little nicer at the beginning of April. I thanked UDOT for their work on the Aggie Boulevard Park traffic light, and they also wanted, express their appreciation to the interlocal agreement, how people work so hard to get that done. There's new signage along I-313 to make it safer. They have completed 12 construction projects in 2024, and maintenance project covered by trail ongoing projects. CNHA was voted nonprofit of the year by the Chamber of Commerce, and that was good. Their sales are up for the year by 2%, 3% in Arches, and a whole 9% at the Needles. Needles district really improved a lot. Arches visitation expansion of their visitor center is moving forward. I went to the travel council meeting. Brian Humming is taking another position and will be leaving Grand County, so his position on the board and as chair will be up. He said he may be back at some other point. The main activity during that meeting was interviewing candidates for the open positions. Homeless coordinating committee meeting this Saturday, and I haven't heard the time, but I will let everybody know. They didn't have it. There's going to be it's National Homeless Awareness Day throughout the United States, so they're going to do something to remember Marksberry that passed away a few years ago from exposure, a homeless man.
Wait, say
And it's going to be Marksberry.
Marksberry. Okay.
And it's going to be anyway. I will send more information. I think it's going to be at the Rotary Park. Solid Waste Special Service District. We have a new member, Ashley Wareham, and she's joined the board, and her knowledge because of her work at Harrison's has been really helpful. I really appreciated her work, and we passed an ordinance to have a discount for special populations for eligible Grand County, Utah's residents that are on a fixed income. And it's, I want to thank Chris Kaufman has worked with us very closely to help us do that in a way that it is on, there's no guesswork, that it's just straight down the line, you qualify or you don't qualify. So that was great. And we had our budget hearing and no one showed up. And so anyway, that's it.
Great, thank you. Kevin, are you prepared to do a report this time?
Sure he has nothing because he's not.
Yeah, I have nothing to report covering the past 2 weeks. So thanks.
But last chance, Kevin.
I'll stick with my original answer there.
Okay. All right, then I had a few things the last couple of weeks. On December 4th, I was part of the Mud Springs Trail Builders proposal meeting where we looked at the proposals from, it was 9 different trail builders. There was a RLA put out for folks to put forward a proposal on building the machine built trails for phase 1 out of Mud Springs. And we chose a great company. San Juan County was involved with that. It's been a great collaboration so far. Matt McDonald was on the committee and he had some good insight on that. So we're happy to have chosen a trail builder, and that work should get done next year from August until November. So definitely looking forward to Mud Springs trails. And part of that is that phase 1 is the potential NICA course out there that'll help bring the mountain bike racing league, the high school league, back to this area, which would be great. On December 6th, I helped the Chamber of Commerce, the Christmas tree lighting, which was a great success and fun as usual. And also wanted to give the Chamber kudos on a super successful light parade this year. That was an awesome parade. I saw most of you guys out there at some point. I rode with the bikers in that one. Had a great time, but the Chamber really pulled off a great job, especially as they had just lost their executive director. The board really pitched in and helped out with that. On the 10th, I attended a Trail Mix meeting. There was discussion for Trail Mix elects the user group reps every year at the first meeting, as well as the chair and vice chair. Most of the user group reps will continue in their position, but they are still looking for a climbing and canyoneering rep, as well as an active transportation rep. Colin Topper has been the chair for the last 3 years, stepping down and won't run for the chair next year. And it looks like Brendan Cameron, who is the vice chair, will run for the chair position.
I know a great person that could be a climbing rep.
That's right. Someone time on their hands all of a sudden. There you go, Evan.
I like this. I mean,
That's right.
All right. And let's see. We also talked about working on there's quite a bit of old signage, and they received a grant to replace a lot of that signage this year. So there's signage that's been out on the trails for a long time that has been sun damaged and is almost unreadable at this point. So talked about replacing that, and that's about it there. Along with Bill, we did the new commissioner orientation on December 10th. I thought that was very successful. And on the 11th, had a Chamber of Commerce meeting. There's going to be a few seats open on that board, and they will be accepting applications for, if you're a member of the Chamber, to be a part of that board. Those are due by January 10th. And the board is also looking at hiring a new executive director. We also went over the last couple of events they put on again, namely the light parade and the Christmas tree lighting, which were great, as well as the financials for the banquet, which is also quite successful. On the 11th, I attended a TSSD water board meeting. Most of that meeting involved the discussion of the well drilling. Jones and DeMille came out and they decided they wanted to further talk to the BLM about developing the other spring that the TSSD had looked at developing for a while. Jones and DeMille, the engineers from them, were a little bit worried that the well would draw from the same aquifer as the spring and affect that spring, and that would probably trigger a protest from the BLM. So there was discussion about that, and it looks like a couple members of the board will be meeting with Jones and DeMille as well as the BLM in the DWR. Mark Stilson will come out, and they'll have some further discussions about that before moving forward with drilling that well. Also, the board passed the 2025 Thompson budget. The total of that budget is $65,000. There was no comment on that, and it looks like a pretty good conservative budget. Another big news from that meeting is the that J.R. Corkery will no longer be the chair. He still will be very involved. He'll still be a board member, but Les Thane looks like will take over as chair of the TSSD. And the spring report came in at an average of 218 gallons per minute for the last month, which is flowing pretty strong. So that spring's been running pretty strong all year. This last month was a very strong year. Yeah, so that's good news. And that's about all I have for this last meeting of 2024. Let's see, we'll move on to elected official reports. And I'll start off with Gabe, our elected clerk auditor.
Nothing at this time, thanks.
Thanks, Gabe. Steven?
Nothing to add.
All right, looks like Jameson had a report last week. I don't see him here. Yeah, go ahead.
Jameson isn't here. He had the Grant County Sheriff's party this weekend on Saturday. They honored members of search and rescue, dispatch, the sheriff's department. I wish I had all the names, but it was a good celebration. They honored search and rescue. They gave out the life-saving award to Deputy Lindsay. They gave Lawman of the Year to Kurt Brewer. And there were other awards. I don't have all the names memorized, but that was a very great celebration. And I think that was good for the sheriff's office. And they honored SAR as well. And I'm remiss, but I can't recall the names and all the awards. But I know Maggie Nielsen won SAR, I think Employee of the Year or something to that effect. But yeah, one of those. But yeah, it was a great event, and I wish the sheriff was here to correct me. So, but I did get a couple right.
Thanks, Stephen. All right, we'll move on to our commission administrator report. Quinn?
I attended a few meetings, also the new commissioner orientation. I thought that was great. I wanted to echo Jacques' comments about working with San Juan County on the RFP selection process for the trail building in Mud Springs. Mac McDonald's been just a peach to work with, and I'm super glad to see that collaboration move forward and that kind of working relationship evolve. I'm super grateful for that. So that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Quinn. All right, we're finished with general reports, so we'll move on to public hearings. And our first public hearing is the Van Pelt Road vacation. And this one was going to be presented by Bill Jackson. It looks like Bill left the room. Is he on? Oh, there you go, Bill. Sorry, man. you're back on. This is a Bill heavy meeting.
Well, I wasn't necessarily thinking I was gonna present this necessarily.
I think we also have Stephen
Stocks,
helping present as well.
attorney, Mr. Stocks is heavily involved in it. So we got an application to vacate the Van Pelt Road, which is went through all the process, and I think Carla's here too, can speak on this. Representing the applicant, and it's been through the attorney's office, and it's been noticed for a public hearing, obviously, for state statute, and so that's kind of where we're sitting. The public hearing on it, and I'd be willing to field any questions you have.
Great. Any questions for Stephen or for Bill right now?
Carla, do you just want to do a quick synopsis of what it is? Do you mind doing that? Make you do some public. Yeah, you need to come
please
up so
come
that
forward.
we can hear you in the.
Thanks.
Yeah, so this is a request from Palladium Foundation, President Jennifer Spears. She's traveling, so I said I would show up. And the request is for a section of Van Pelt Road. So it's a Y off of Van Pelt that accesses the 40 acres that Palladium leases to Kenny Lansfield Institute for Outdoor Education. So the reason that we started this process on this with BLM Realty Specialist Lisa Wilkalak last February and March is the desire to gate that last dog leg of road right up along the property, mainly to improve safety, child safety, and just limit access a little bit more to the curious public who often is wondering what those TVs are about. So that's the reason. And my understanding is that if, once it's vacated, I'd like to, sounds like going on vacation. Once it's vacated, then the request then goes to the BLM. Because the BLM then would consider a reassignment to Palladium. And that will have to go through a NEPA process. So there's some more review coming. But the first step is for the commission to approve the vacation of that section of road. How do I do? Okay.
Bill?
Yeah, I move to approve an ordinance vacating that portion.
Sorry, this is just a public hearing. We're just opening public hearing. Sorry.
Like, whoa.
All right, I will, yeah, go ahead.
Just to be clear, this is just a right of way. We don't actually, the county doesn't own the road. It's the BLM.
Correct. County has a right of way, Title V right of way.
And it's just a dead end into.
It
what
is.
They're using for the camp now.
Correct, it's a dead end.
And so the public would still have access to the public lands out there.
Yes.
And it doesn't affect the horse trail head out there or anything.
It's a little bit more than that, Bill, so we're clear. I think in your packet, you have a map, on the BLM letter on, with that, and it outlines that length of that road, which is approximately 0.3 miles. So around 1,700 feet, 1,500 feet, something like that. So very limited, as far as the B road money, you were looking at maybe $1,000 a year, something like that we would begin that particular road, stretch of road. And so I just want to be clear on that. It's a little more than just along their fence line.
We had gone back and forth, whether just to ask for that stretch along the fence or the entire stretch from the Y, and in the end, kind of going back and forth between Bill and Lisa, it was the easiest, given the current legal description on the right of way, to stick with that legal description. And Lisa recommended that entire section because it was just going to be, it would be more straightforward.
Great. Any other questions before I open the public hearing? All right, then I will open the Van Pelt Road vacation public hearing. We'll keep the public hearing open. Usually we do it till the following Wednesday, which is actually Christmas Day. So we'll leave it open until the end of the day on Thursday, the 26th of December for public comment. You can, if you want to address any comment to Grand County Commission, you can email it to Grand County or just to commission@grandcountyutah.net or bring in comment. So I'll open that public hearing and I would ask if there's anyone in the room today who had anything they wanted to comment on concerning this particular public hearing. Anyone here to make comment on the Van Pelt Road vacation? Looks like not. Anyone on Zoom? And all right, and it doesn't look like that either. Okay, so we will leave public comment open again until the 26th of December, and this issue will be decided at our January 7th meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Bill.
Chair, a question for the chair and for the commission. I'm going to slip out to help finalize documents. I know that my involvement may be necessary on items 3, 4, 5, 6, but not necessarily 7 and 8. And I know Commissioner Walker wanted to be present through item 8. I don't care what item you guys go to, but I'm going to be absent for a moment while we finalize. Okay, so I'm just noting that and slipping out for a moment.
Yeah, we're gonna wait for 3.
Sure. Yep. So.
Item 2 will have to happen after 6.
Oh, item 2. So the next public hearing. Okay. Okay, then after 6 o'clock. Yeah, okay. All right, then getting on with our agenda, we will postpone the public hearing item 2, the proposed amendment to the recently adopted major utility overlay until after 6 p.m. So that means we will now get on to our general business and action items. I will also postpone agenda item 3 until after agenda item 8. And it looks like we will move on to agenda item 4, ordinance approving land use code revisions to articles 8 and 9, subdivision review process. And this one is being presented by Amy Weiser, our planning and zoning director. Welcome, Amy.
Everybody, thank you. Share my screen really fast and get started. Okay. All right, so this item, we had the public hearing at your last meeting, and this is the subdivision ordinance that is being mandated by the state of Utah through Senate Bill, House Bill 174. And so we didn't really receive any public comment at your last meeting. We do have some items I did add. Get organized. I wasn't sure where we were going here. Okay, I do have a few things to add to you, just to discuss about the packet. So as you remember, this is to speed up the processing time for residential subdivisions only. So for single family dwellings, duplexes, townhouses, multifamily and commercial is not subject to this new process, okay? And if you recall, it requires 4 review cycles is what they call it. And those 4 review cycles have to encompass both the preliminary plat approval and the final plat approval. So all of that has to get done within those 4 review cycles. Each review cycle gives county staff 20 days to review things and provide comment, and gives the applicant 20 days to respond to those comments. So basically it's 80 times 4 is the total 4 review cycles, if that makes sense. So as staff, we feel most of the work is really sort of done on the preliminary plat. There's a lot of back and forth with the applicant. And by the time preliminary plat is approved, hopefully there's just a few remaining items for the applicant, and it's just determining if it's in substantial compliance with the preliminary plat, and perhaps doing subdivision improvement agreements and a final legal review. So we're shooting for 2 to 3 cycles for the preliminary plat and 1 cycle for the final plat, just to kind of give you an idea of where our heads are at. So the development review team met this morning to kind of run through, okay, it starts January 1st. What are we going to do about this? And so as Bill Jackson mentioned, the DRT was in support of the zoning administrator as the land use authority, which is what the ordinance is proposing. The attorney's office is in favor of the zoning administrator being the land use authority. You also have an email in your packet from Kirk Killamore. He actually drafted the Senate bill and helped get it through the state. He worked with the Utah Association of Counties to help counties draft their ordinances. He helped us draft our ordinances, and then our attorney's office worked on it some more. I did ask him, because some counties are having to do this now. The larger counties had to start before the end of the year. And so I asked him, does he have any stats? You know, I said, do you have anything that'll help us with this? So, sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. So this was the email from Kirk. I just said, hey, do you have any stats so far on what everybody's doing? So he did say the most common practice is to have a single individual as the land use authority, and this is typically the planning and zoning director or similar administrative official. And you'll see that the reasoning behind this choice is because of the streamlined process, and it has to be as efficient as possible rather than political. The less common practice is a planning commission member as the land use authority. While this option is less common, it's been adopted in a few instances. You can read what he says there. And then some challenges other counties are facing, is adapting to the shift away from the more traditional public process, which is, I know, what a lot of the commissioners have concerns about. Many counties are accustomed to multiple hearings, public input, and votes. There can be hesitation, of course, and it can feel less transparent. So he provided an email just sort of in support of a single individual, and it's most commonly the zoning administrator that is the land use authority. So that's what the attorney's office is supporting. That's what staff is supporting, and your development review team is supporting. The planning commission did, as Kirk pointed out, have some hesitation about maybe how do we make sure the public knows some of these things are happening? So the ordinance, and I thought Stephen would be here for this, but he's not. So the ordinance from, well, the Senate Bill 174 does give the counties some latitude, as we've kind of discussed. So there's only 3 options really for the land use authority. It cannot be the county commission. They are extremely clear about that. It can be the zoning administrator, it can be the planning commission, or it can be, as Kirk mentioned, their preference is a single individual. So they're even mentioning just a member of the planning commission, like the chair or something like that. The planning commission did request that they would like the land use authority to still be the zoning administrator, but the Senate Bill 174 does allow, it's at the discretion of the planning department to have one public meeting at the planning commission. So we talked as staff and with the planning commission about that. Like, we're not exactly thrilled that it's discretionary, in the sense that if we have one 20-lot subdivision in and we decide to send them to a meeting at the planning commission, and we have another 20-lot subdivision, but we don't send them, we're concerned that it might show bias, or how come you sent him and you didn't, so what we've talked about is, if the commission decides to go that route and follow the planning commission's representative, we in planning would like to set perhaps a threshold where if a subdivision comes in that's more than 5 lots, then we would automatically say, okay, it's going to have a meeting at the planning commission. So, and we can do that per state statute. We're allowed, it's discretionary, so we can decide how we want to handle that. So that's kind of what's been discussed so far. The other options are that some counties are doing is making sure they put on their website every current active subdivision application. Also having a planning commission member or county commission member or both come to the development review team meeting, so that you can be aware of what's going on and you can share that with your constituents, especially if it's in your district. We could certainly, if it's in a certain commissioner's district, we could invite that commissioner to the meeting. So there's other ways we could handle it besides an actual public meeting. But that's for you all to discuss. And just to be clear, it is a public meeting, not a public hearing. So if anybody comes and comments, it's really sort of public clamor. It is not to be considered in the decision. So that makes you think, well, why even bother having a public meeting? So that is the state is trying to remove any influence of public clamor, any influence of politics, and just streamline this process. So that's what we've been directed to do. So I'm here for questions if you have any. I was hoping Stephen or Bart Kuntz might be on. I don't know. I don't think they are. So, but I'm here to answer questions as best I can.
Great, thanks, Amy. Bill.
I don't have any questions, just a reminder of the background of this. This came out of UAC last year, and Senator Tullamore, who is also a legal attorney, was hired by UAC. And so his fees have been paid by UAC to help our attorney and our staff bring this to fruition. So it hasn't, his time hasn't cost the county any money, and I don't know how much time that has been with our county, but he has certainly helped multiple counties through this process already, so. That's the background.
Okay, cool.
that I
Thanks for
have
that
on it.
clarification, Bill. Hey, Amy, I just wondered if Mr. Cullimore, told us how many counties have already, come into compliance, like when we look at the counties that have done this and the counties that have done that, do we know if it's like 2 counties that did this, 1 that did that, or is it more like, you know,
Well,
18, 3?
there's still some trailing counties like us that
Right.
have till December 31st. And so they said at the end of the year, they're gonna compile some stats. They said, oh yeah, that's a really good idea, because I was asking for some stats. So I didn't get real specifics on that. It was just kind of a general, here's what we're seeing.
Okay.
But I think they're gonna come out with something like that in 2025. Yeah.
Evan?
Can you go back to that part about the options for triggering a public meeting?
Yeah, so the Senate bill doesn't say anything about it other than it's our discretion if we want to have one meeting at the planning commission. So what we kind of talked about as staff, and I think we talked a little bit with the planning commission about it, is as staff, I always have concerns if it's discretionary and I send one person, but I don't send another person. It doesn't always look good. It's like, why? So what we talked about was maybe setting a threshold if the subdivision is 5 lots or more.
Yeah.
So large subdivisions have to go through this streamlined process if it's strictly residential. So if we get a 50 lot residential subdivision, it has to go through this streamlined process. So we were thinking maybe using lots as a threshold.
Yeah.
Sometimes the smaller subdivisions can be more controversial. And so it's kind of hard to
But
make that decision, but the
that's
large,
not captured in the draft. It's not currently.
it is not in the draft. The draft is as recommended by the attorney's office and staff. And so, but that's all that staff could sort of come up with right now is just at least setting a lot number threshold, because the big subdivisions take more staff time
Yeah.
often. And the little one, anyway, so that's kind of our thought.
And we're not allowed to require any kind of hearing.
No. There is to be no public hearings. There is to be you can have a public meeting. So,
I like that idea. I mean, I do think that our planning commission wanted public engagement, and I agree with you. I understand we're trying to remove public clamor, but I also think it's a way to educate the public as to what's happening. Yes, we do have a website. I think you said that we haven't kept that updated as far as putting in what applications are going through, but I think that's an easy ask that if you have a threshold, and I like your idea of 5 lots or more, that it just be put in a public meeting, and that way, the public knows as to what is happening.
Sure.
So that's my recommendation. I think it was the recommendation of the planning commission, and I think we should heed their recommendations.
yeah. And just to be clear, right now, the zoning administrator makes the final decision on preliminary plats.
Yep.
So, and then for the final plat, it comes to the county commission. So it is on a county commission agenda as a action item. So that is the only notice that the public receives right now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bill?
Yeah, and I follow along with the recommendations that we've heard, that we make that position the zoning administrator. I mean, that to me is the most qualified person that we've got in the county at that level to be making those decisions. So that was the position that I would support.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you were proposing, Trish, is that the zoning administrator
Yes.
is that person, but if we have a certain number of, there's 5 lots.
Yep.
Then it just goes to a public meeting.
Yep. And so I don't think it should slow the process down that much. I mean, it's fine.
We'll see,
And it is what it is.
Yeah, we'll see. It's
Yeah.
gonna sort of be a trial and error the first few months, right? So I think it's, if we try this and it's not working, if we're not meeting the timeframes, then we're gonna come back and try something else. So, I mean, that's always our option. And just so you know, the implications of if we don't meet our 20 days in that review cycle, if we, the county, don't meet our 20 days, what that means is it basically reverts to a denial. And then the applicant can immediately turn around and appeal that to the court. And so as we work with applicants, they may, they have the option to give us an extension. So if we say, hey, you know, we're not gonna make it, here's your options. You know, we may be able to work with applicants and get an extension versus them having to go through that process. So we'll just have to see how it goes. We're scrambling. We're trying to figure out how we're gonna pull this off. But
Kevin has a hand up online. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, there was also some discussion about not public hearings or public meetings, but just putting on the county website just a notification of which subdivisions are being considered, and make sure that's always up to date. And so I just wanted to, has that been incorporated into the draft?
it's not in the draft, Kevin, but that's something that staff supports and staff would like to do. So we can do that regardless of which process the commission decides to go with. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, Kirk had mentioned the mailings too, and that was kind of weird to me that with the website posting, an administrative notice.
Yeah,
I read to be.
So,
Neighbors, but it was kind of funny to me that we would like tell the neighbors, but then there was no process for them to.
yeah, so what some, let me pull that up really fast. What, let me see what he said about that. Yeah, so some applications in the planning world, you notify adjacent neighbors when an application comes in, and they have 10 days to comment or something like that. So, and I think where that would come into play is when a subdivision has buffering standards. So if a subdivision is adjacent to a single family dwelling, and this is a 50 lot subdivision, they might ask for some additional buffering, or they might ask that there maybe not be more setbacks on there. So, who knows?
And that
So-
request would be submitted to the
Would-
team,
Correct.
the zoning administrator would have to.
Correct. And so then we would look at code and say, okay, they're meeting their buffering standards per the code. And we would talk to the applicant and just say, are you willing to increase your fence by 1 foot to make this person happy? So it would sort of be that process. It's not, again, it's more work. And the standards for subdivisions are very clear and objective. They're not discretionary. They're not subjective. So it's a pretty clear process.
And have you got any sense about if there's pushback against these bills?
It'll be interesting because some jurisdictions have been doing it for most of the year, and I know a lot of them have had struggles and challenges. So it'll be interesting to see in the next legislative session if there's a change to it or if there's the removal of it. We just, we'll see how it goes.
I'd almost like there's kind of rider on there that if these, because if we make changes to our code to come into alignment with this stuff that's being handed down to the state, that if that goes away, we should look at this again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you would have the support of staff on that. So
Yeah, so I don't know a way to capture that. We should have that trigger. It's specific that says to align with SB 174 and HB 476, so that then in the future, if people say, hey, what is part of these bills? That then they can see. I know.
I know.
that's not a question for you.
I would just say I don't think that's necessary, in the sense that if something does happen with that, we will be alerted pretty quickly, and we can change our that part of the ordinance, part of the code really quickly. And I think we'll be on it with that one. So, but I hear what you're saying. I'm always wary of putting something
some language like that in the code. But if you wanted that maybe in the ordinance itself, but again, I don't really think that's. Yeah, so I get what you're saying, but we could tell the attorney's office to sort of, keep track of that for us or something.
If we wanted to include a threshold, do you think just mentioning that in the motion would be enough that they could determine what that threshold is?
Yeah.
For a meeting and draft that, or?
Say threshold at the discretion.
Or just,
I think that threshold should be captured.
Okay.
yeah. And again, we could always, if that threshold isn't working, we can come back. Our initial thought was just 3 or 5 lots. I think I'll go with 5. If it's anything over 5 lots, then it should probably have a public meeting. That's
Just out of
direction.
curiosity, I mean, how many times would that have been triggered this year, for example? It's not many.
Right. I don't have that answer for you.
Since you've been on.
Since I've been on, I mean, we've had, yeah, I mean, I think, so this, we used to have this process called minor subdivisions, which was 3 lots
Right,
or
yeah.
less. So this is kind of, those fall under this too.
Yeah.
And so we do get quite a few 3 lots or less. We also get quite a few sort of 10 and under, just because of the amount of land that's required, right, to do a big subdivision.
Sure.
So, but if we put it too low, we're gonna be sending everything and it's gonna be.
Right.
No, I that's not what
Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, if we set it at 5, for example, like the last half a year or however long
Yeah.
you've been on, how many, just to give me and folks an idea of how
Yeah.
often this is gonna come up.
That's a great question, Jacques, and I don't have the answer.
Okay, but under, like, just a few.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's more than 10, right? I can't imagine it, but it could be. I just don't have
Right.
that stat for you.
Thanks. Trish? Oh, okay.
Should I might attempt to make a motion.
Sure, yeah,
And then if, are you okay with that?
good with that.
And you
Absolutely.
might need to. Yeah, add some
Okay.
clarification for me. I move to approve the proposed land use code revisions to Articles 8 and 9 as mandated by SB 174 and HB 476 for subdivision application processes and review times, with the addition of to include a public meeting at the planning commission prior to approval of the final subdivision application for subdivisions over 5 lots. Over 5 lots? Are you good with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Trish. Mary will second. Okay. Yeah, further discussion. I think that sounds great to me, and I know we can always see how it goes and come
Right,
back
you
next
can let
year
us
and
know how it's going.
Yeah.
revisit the process too. Mike?
Yeah.
In your views, none of that falls outside of, scope of the ordinance, what we're getting told from the state.
No, it's at our discretion if we want to have one public meeting at the planning commission.
Okay.
So we're just requesting that we make a public threshold to what that is, so that we as staff aren't. Yeah, it just protects staff and it protects the applicant too, so that they know the deal.
And this is just my hopes here. One, it doesn't put undue burden on time, because we are in these tighter time constraints. 2, undue burden on you. I mean, your time is valuable, both sides of that. So
Yeah, well,
please keep me updated going in the new year.
we'll report back if we're having issues, because we do have planning commission twice a month. So, depending on when something comes in, getting it on a meeting and those, but Chrissy Hoffine did mention she felt that she was gonna look into whether the time required to put it on a public meeting, on an agenda, and for that meeting to happen may not be in that 20 days. She wasn't entirely, when you read the language, we're not sure. So we're gonna see if anybody else is doing that same thing and find out. And I would just like to make clear that staff will choose which cycle of those 4 cycles to send it. We'll most likely send it during the preliminary plat, because that's when most of the comments come in. So just so you know, we'll kind of decide which cycle to send that. Okay.
All right. Any other questions before I call for a vote? Comments?
Job handling this.
Yeah.
Going through frustrating.
All right, so the motion was made by Trish and it was seconded by Mary. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Kevin?
Yes.
All right, so that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy, and I think you're on to the next one at least. I'm gonna turn this over to Mary to chair. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, we are moving on to item number 5, ordinance repealing and replacing section 6, land use of the 2030 general plan and the future land use map of Spanish Valley of the 2030 general plan.
Thank you. I did, 1 second, get to the right spot. I did ask Thomas Eddington from CZB to be on, and I saw him on a minute ago. Are you still on, Thomas?
I am. Hello.
Okay. I asked Thomas to join us in case you all have questions. Thomas is a great resource, and so he agreed to just join you via Zoom tonight. So I'll just run through this really quick. You all have had a chance to look at everything, and so as you're aware, this process to update the land use section of the general plan has been going on for a few years. It's been a public process as required by the state. We've had multiple public workshops, multiple chances for public comment. And so as you're aware, we engaged CBZ at the beginning of 2024 or middle of 2024. And so they've completed these updates per the direction given to them, which was to have it look much different, feel much different, be much more user friendly. And so I think we're all in agreement that they've done a really good job with that. And so I can pull anything up that you would like to see. We are recommending approval of repealing and replacing, that's important, section 6 of the land use section in the general plan, and also repealing and replacing the future land use map of Spanish Valley. And those are both currently in the 2030 general plan. So, so we're proposing to repeal and replace both of those with what you have before you this evening. And we're just here for questions. If you want me to run through anything else, just let me know. And again, Thomas is here if you would like some clarification or ask him some questions.
I'm not sure the recommended motion is aligning with this. Am I wrong on that? When I'm a little confused. Yeah, so you know, your title is repealing and replacing all of that, but when you go to the motion, it moves into Article 3, Sections 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. I'm a little.
Are you looking at the ordinance? I'm sorry.
We're looking at
It's under summary.
your agenda summary.
I am not seeing that. I'm seeing, do you want me to share it on my screen? Sure. I don't have any of that in mine.
I think item 2 might have slid into item 5.
That's what it seems like.
So I'm on the agenda on the website. I'm under 5, ordinance repealing and replacing. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, see, we did, this is better.
This is
This
better.
makes sense.
Yeah, this makes sense. What we had is different.
Huh, okay.
If you
It's
go
number
dig
2.
a little deeper.
Okay,
Well,
yeah, I think.
it's the second tab under item 5.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
It's the second agenda summary. I don't know where that first one came from.
And under the staff report, there were some possible actions.
That was left over from
Okay,
the staff report to the planning commission. I believe.
And did we get a recommendation from the planning commission?
Yes, you did. The planning commission, they had a few changes which we shared with you all. Those changes were made, and other than that, they were recommending approval.
I would move to approve the ordinance repealing and replacing section 6 land use in the future land use map of Spanish Valley, the 2030 general plan, in accordance with the attached exhibit A, section 6 land use, and exhibit B, future land use map of Spanish Valley.
I'll second that.
All right, awesome, thank you guys. Further discussion on this? Yeah, sure, Bill.
Yeah, I just think that this is a little bit rushed in the fact that this is where we're waiving policy to move this forward, correct?
No.
That was the last one.
No, we
that's
haven't
the-
gotten to that one yet.
That's the one that has a public hearing shortly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, I'm fine with this.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
We're all mixed up.
It's
This is the long time coming.
Yeah,
okay,
it's
it's all right,
That was, yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I'm good with it as well. All right, then I'll call for a vote on this. I think, let's see, Evan, you made the motion, Trish seconded it. Evan's getting your motions in while you can, right, Evan? All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hands, say aye.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, and motion passes.
Is Thomas still up
Thank you
there?
very much, and
Thank you.
Thomas, are you
Yes.
still on?
I am.
I just want to thank Thomas for a great job, and I'll let you
Yeah,
speak.
I want to thank you too, Thomas. You guys have done a great job.
Thank you so much. It's been great working with you. Hopefully we'll continue down the line. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay, so thanks, Amy. We're actually I had said that I was gonna postpone agenda item 3, which is the Grand County decision on zoning appeal, back till after 8, but after consulting with our county attorney, it looks like we're ready to go on that one. So I will now present that action item, and that action item is the Grand County decision on the zoning appeal. Yeah, please do.
Just to give the community a background, this is the original hearing the commissioners heard. Just want to thank the commission for their diligence on this. The community doesn't know, but we went in to deliberate about this on a few different times. We've had the help of a few different attorneys, myself and Bart, on behalf of the Grand County Commission. Additionally, we had an attorney that helped P&Z based on our review of the law and the information that we had. It would be best practice to provide P&Z an attorney. That was Corbin.
Yes.
And he provided legal counsel to P&Z. That was something that Bart Kuntz and I decided that would be best practice to do. So it wasn't something that she had requested. That was done. And so all the briefs were provided. I think that the parties presented themselves well. We appreciate everybody working hard to have the hearing, the deliberations and everything. So I just want to make that known.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephen. And I think we have deliberated on this. I think it's been 4 occasions now, including earlier today. This has definitely been one of the more difficult things that I think we've tackled in my time on the commission. And like Stephen said, I'd like to thank everybody who is involved. And I'd especially like to thank our attorneys, our county attorney, Stephen Stocks, as well as Bart Kuntz, who's helped us out immensely, kind of getting into the nitty gritty of this issue. So very much appreciate your all's effort as well. That said, I will get into, let's see, I'd also like to commend the county staff for their diligent and professional efforts to locate maps and the genuine attempts to verify the zoning on the subject property. Although we determined that the last clear indication of the zoning of the KCPD's property was an ordinance enacted in 1992 that zoned a smaller and different area commercial than the KCPD currently contends, for the reasons discussed below, which will be in our decision, including subsequent maps published by the county, the absence of unambiguous evidence, and the force of law, we reluctantly conclude that it is in the county's best interest to accept the county maps portrayal the zoning of KCPD's property.
And for the public and the commission's information, we've circulated the final decision that we've worked on. The decision delineates a few different positions, but that information has been provided to the commissioners and it will be uploaded into the minutes. and the agenda summary here. If we had a motion from a commission member to accept the drafted order, it would accept it in the form that it is currently in. That includes the majority opinion, concurrences, and a dissent. So that is what would be left to do, and then that will be provided online. Additionally, once the commission approves that document, I will make sure to circulate that to all the involved parties, which includes planning and zoning, KCPD, and the watch. Those individuals would be informed of the decision once it's approved by the commission.
Thank you, Stephen. Anyone like to make that motion?
What do you, would that be appropriate? Stephen, just the title on the document?
Sure. You could just. I can make it a I got you. I'd like to make a motion on the decision of the Grant County Commission document, approving the document as provided.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Second by Bill. All right. Mike, Commissioner McCurdy made the motion to accept the decision as provided, and Commissioner Winfield seconded it. Anyone have further comment?
And again, for the public's information, each position has information about each different position, the rationale, the reason, the information, and also a fact pattern within that document.
Yeah, and we should expect that to be posted within the next half hour. So.
Correct, and that'll be available publicly in the next half hour.
Yeah. And that'll be available in the currently published agenda packet. So if you go to our Grant County Commission meeting agenda packet for today, you would find it under the item number 3. Correct. Okay. Later. All right. Last call on comment. Looks like none, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands.
Yes.
Is that a yes, Kevin?
Yes, it was a yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Thank you for that. And thank you, Bart. So,
thank you, Bart. Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Okay. Then we will we'll move on with our regular agenda, and we'll move on to agenda item 6. That is adopting ordinance approving the Grant County Clerk, Auditor, Assessor, Treasurer, Recorder, and Surveyor salary adjustments, as well as a cost of living adjustment for elected officials effective on January 1st, 2025. And for this agenda item, Tess Barger, our Personnel Services Director, will be presenting.
Did you know that, Tess? She's like
the best.
That's the approval for the electeds. Yeah. All right.
Test.
Don't you like get thrown under the bus?
Just been too excited to
Deer
sign
in the headlights.
myself up for some extra things, huh?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
You don't seem like somebody who gets rattled.
I certainly try not to.
Yeah, you're pretty calm.
Alright.
And that's agenda item 6.
I'm just gearing up to share my screen as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll first share the summary for this item, and then we can review the ordinance for it. Okay, excellent. And so for this item, we are again reviewing for discussion and approval an ordinance adopting a cost of living adjustment for our electeds that would go into effect as of January 1, 2025. I would be more than happy if the commission would like additional information. We can of course review previously disseminated information regarding the fiscal impact of this, or if somebody would, if everyone feels comfortable, then we can of course move to make a motion to adopt the ordinance, which I will have pulled up here.
All right. Go ahead, Evan. Looks like
I think we've talked about this a lot. Thank you. So I would move to approve the ordinance adjusting the salaries of the Grant County clerk, auditor, assessor, treasurer, recorder, and surveyor, and enacting a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for all elected officials effective January 1st, 2025.
Thank you. Care to second that? Maybe Commissioner Walker online? Are you there, Kevin? Evan made a motion on
Oh,
agenda.
no,
Okay.
no one's seconding this?
Actually, Bill just seconded it, so we're good.
Okay, I
Thank
would
you,
have been
Bill.
willing to
Like
second
right
this.
here. All right, so the motion was made by Commissioner Clapper and seconded by Commissioner Whitfield. Any comment? We have discussed this a couple times at our various budget workshops.
Yeah, I have a comment when it's my turn.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
So this none of this will be news to people who attended all those other meetings, but I thought it'd be useful just in the record. We've had quite a bit of discussion about the absence of merit increases for elected officials, and that's tricky because they change from time to time because of elections, and it's not really easy for us to be constantly raising and lowering salaries. So to me, I think, based on our previous discussion, this was kind of a middle of the road compromise position amongst the various things that we looked at. In the packet for a previous meeting, Chris Kaufman put together graphs that compared population of various counties with salaries for treasurer, assessor, etc. And unfortunately, in the packet, those graphs got kind of mangled and were difficult to interpret. But if you ask Chris for the original of those graphs, it does show that our salaries are quite a bit higher than other counties with roughly our population. So I think that's as we intended. It's, with taking tourism into account, Grand County sort of somehow punches above its weight, its population weight when it comes to, the complexity and of administering the county. But my conclusion from looking at those graphs is that we are being pretty generous. I don't think we're underpaying our elected officials if we look at what folks in other parts of Utah are getting. So just wanted to, and I think that those are all things that have been discussed before, but I thought it was worth having them in the minutes when we actually pass it.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. Bill?
Yeah, I'd just like to make the comment a little bit here, and I have stated it previously in public meetings. I believe elected officials come on after running uncontested and then voting on a raise or asking for a raise has a little bit of a negative connotation in the public, and it's been raised considerably over the past few months. So I just want to note it. I'm going to vote in favor of it, but it is an issue for some in the public.
All right. And I just wanted to say that, the 2.5% COLA is exactly what the feds are doing. We've kind of gone along with that for at least every year that I've been on the commission. I think it's warranted for everybody.
There was a time that we didn't consistently do that, and it ended up at one point really biting us because we ended up having to give fairly large raises to catch up. So doing a cost of a living wage is, I think, a prudent thing to do.
I'll raise my hand again.
Sure, Kevin.
Yeah, and unless I'm misreading this, we're doing two different things here. One is the 2.5% COLA, which goes to all county employees, including elected officials. But in addition, there's a salary adjustment based on comparisons with other counties, and that leads to an additional raise in addition to the COLA. And I think my remarks previously were phrased at that. I agree that we should, unless the county is really, really strapped for money, we should just always give a cost of living adjustment to all county employees.
Thanks. All right, any further discussion? Call for a vote. Let's see, Evan made the motion and Bill seconded it. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Is that a yes? All right.
Yes.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'm raising my hand and yes.
Thank you. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. All right, and we'll keep Tess here for another couple of minutes. Agenda item 7, approving the 2025 pay plan.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'll go ahead and pull up the resolution. This is similarly to the previous item. We have had a fair amount of discussion related to it. But for this position pay plan update, exhibits A through C have to do with both the grade and step charts adjustments with the scenario that we do pass the 2.5% COLA adjustment this evening. And then exhibits D and down are related to the new position requests and reclassifications that we've also had a number of opportunities to discuss. So I'll first go ahead and just talk about or focus on the resolution establishing the 2025 pay plan. And so this would be the adjustment to, again, both the current salaries that our existing employees receive, as well as the grade and step chart that we use to calculate the wages for any onboarding employees. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all have related to this item.
Right, questions for Tess or comments? Motions? And I can't see you, Kevin, if you have your hand up. Just unmute and you can start speaking.
No questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions or comments related to any of the new position or reclassification positions that are?
I don't. I think we've definitely gone over those also at a number of different budget workshops, so I'm familiar with that.
You know, which document is it that shows the new positions that we're filling?
Yes, so that would be exhibit F. It both has listed the new positions as well as the reclassifications. And it's very small. I apologize. We'll zoom in. While also trying to make sure that as much information landscape is available. So currently the positions that we have that would be new that have made it this far into the budget season's discussion are the court security, drug court deputy, the engineering, which is a full-time position that would be under Jail Commander Shan Hackwell, the engineering technician position, which would be in the planning and zoning department, it would be a part-time position. The evidence technician out of the Grant County Sheriff's Office, which would also be part-time. The fuels reduction coordinator, which is a grant-funded position for the next 5 years, that would be located in the weeds department and is full-time. The weeds technician position, because we're already in that department, is the same. It's been awarded under a 5-year grant and is full-time. Another note about the court security position that I neglected to mention out of the Grant County Sheriff's Office is that it is grant funded for 1 year. And then we would be expected to, at least our assumption at this time would be that we would absorb that position in our own budget next year. And then referring back to the list, the systems administrator in the IT department, which would be full-time. And those are all of the new positions.
Right, got it.
I struggle with this for sure. I know that we've got some essential stuff on here that we need, but I'm still struggling with this. I think we've got to look at this in a different angle, and maybe we do that in the new year, but I really struggle with anything as far as new positions and some of these raises without it being essential services.
I'm personally okay with it. I'm not going to make the motion because I'm the chair, but I think we've discussed this a lot, and I'd be comfortable passing this. I think it's within the budget. We've worked it out, and I'm ready to go forward. Mary?
I'd like to make a motion. Oops, I just lost it.
And I can go back to the motion.
Okay, I got it here. Okay. I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve the resolution titled repeal and replace resolution number 3372 and establish the 2025 pay plan effective January 1st, 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion was made by Commissioner McGann and seconded by Commissioner Hedin. Further discussion? Bill?
Got another thought too, and I think part of this is the fact that we are certainly trying to meet some of these essential services that we have here, and that it's very important that some of these positions get added on, but when we slip in some of the others that really aren't necessary and we bundle this package up, that's really what I've got some heartburn with, when this should have been vetted out a little bit more. That's just all my comment.
Mike?
As stated before, I would have really liked to been voting on a separate instead of a bundle. Also, there are some very needed positions in here, and some that are not needed. But that's where I sit.
Trish?
I don't at all feel like these were slipped in. We've had multiple budget workshops. I don't know how many times we've discussed these positions. We cut out a ton of positions and asks from various departments. I think we're going with what we did approve. Most of them were grant funded, and or they were just slight increases to the positions because they were reclasses. And so I don't feel like this was all at all slipped in anywhere. We have gone over this budget workshop after budget workshop after budget workshop. Tess has done a phenomenal job laying it all out. We vetted this multiple times. So
yeah, I agree with Trish. I'm comfortable with it too. And I think, yeah, Tessa's done a great job of working on this. The commission's had their say and on quite a few occasions. I think Steve and Gabe have also done really the hard lift on all of this. So, yeah, nothing new here, I don't think. Anyone else before I call for a vote? I think, let's see, what Mary made the motion and Trish seconded it. All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hands.
Yes.
Thanks. All opposed. All right, motion passes 6-1 with Commissioner Winfield in opposition. Right, we are on to our citizens to be heard session. It is after 6 o'clock. If there's anyone here in the chamber who would like to come forward and make a comment as a citizen, then I would invite you forward. Please raise your hand and I'll call on you and you may come forward to speak for 3 minutes. Anyone in the chambers like to comment? Anyone online here who has showed up for citizens to be heard? I see a few names I don't recognize online. Anyone, if you are online to make comment, please either use the raise your hand symbol or you can just unmute your microphone and begin speaking by introducing yourself. Anybody? All right, last call for citizens to be heard. Okay, it is after 6, so we are actually going to move back in our agenda to our public hearing. This public hearing had to occur after 6 o'clock, and this public hearing is the item number 2 on your agenda. It's the proposed amendment to recently adopted major utility overlay, and Amy is presenting this one.
All right, thank you. I will get my screen up again. Okay, so this is an amendment to the recently adopted major utility overlay ordinance. So after this was adopted by the county commission, we had a pre-application conference with someone that wanted to do something that required us to look at this section of the code. And when we looked at it, it was unclear whether what they wanted to do was a minor or a major utility. And the reason is, and if you have all this in your packet, and if I can pull up different versions if you'd like me to, it wasn't very clear in mainly the use table, which I'll pull up. So what we did was, for major utilities, we pointed to the new 4.10 major utility overlay, which was great. There was no error there. Where the error was in this 3.4.8 J for minor utilities. It was unclear the way that the ordinance was passed. It was unclear what was a minor and what was a major. And so what we've done is clarify that in this proposed amendment. So you'll see the red line there for the major utilities, which are then moved over to uses not included, and everything is listed under minor utilities. And so what happened is, for some reason, the minor utility header was moved sort of in between all of the minor utility uses. So it was just a little unclear what was a minor and what wasn't. So that's the big change with this table, is just really separating those and clarifying what's a minor and what's a major. While I was at it, because I got another crack at it, there was some confusion about telecommunication tower and facility, whether it was a new site or an existing site, and what sections of the code those were subject to. So that was just sort of a cleaning house in a sense. We were cleaning up some of that confusion. And if you'll scroll down, you'll see that telecommunications and facilities in a tower campus, that section R is proposed just to be stricken, and it's actually moved up to the section right above it. So it's still there, it's just been incorporated into the section above it. So that was just kind of a housekeeping, making things more clear. And then we also provided a definition for transmission facility. It was there was no definition for it. So we wanted to add a definition for transmission facility while we were in here. And then if you look at, and then that's Exhibit A. And then Exhibit B is for Article 4. And there was just a few changes for Article 4. It referred to as the wrong section in 4.10.1 purpose. So we made that the correct section. Did a little just housekeeping there. And we added applicability. There wasn't really an applicability statement like in other overlay sections. So we just added purpose and uses. Major utilities are those facilities needed to support development, serving a limited area in a specific development, the citizens of Grand County, the region, or the state. So that pretty much covers any proposed major utility. So we have examples: waste treatment plants, water treatment facility, water towers, water storage tanks. And then we also made sure that we just said uses not included or all uses considered minor utilities, and refers back to 3.4.8J. So that was the biggest change there. And then while we were at it, we did want to add a very, very cursory stab, because we didn't have a lot of time, on development standards. So most sections in the overlay section are arranged that way, where it's who does this apply to, what uses, and then what are the standards. So we had talked about it with the commission, and we hadn't gotten standards in it before, and the commission said, well, we'll do that next time when we have time. So we put in very general standards to make sure if something comes in before we get more specific, at least we have something. So this just says, in addition to the standards for the underlying zone, the county commission may, at their discretion, require increased standards when a major utility is proposed directly abutting a residential zone or residentially developed property. And the following shall be considered for the development of any major utility. So we just setbacks, buffer, height limitation, building scale, massing, landscaping, fencing, just laid it out there that you may be subject to increased standards for any one of these things. I will encourage us to spend some more time on that in 2025, but I know this was important to kind of get cleaned up in the interim. So.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Amy. And just to re-emphasize, this was basically passed back in October by the commission, and we are just going back and cleaning a few things up and making a few things more clear for everybody.
Correct.
Making,
and I
making
am,
your job easier.
Yeah, I am asking that the commission suspend their usual policy This is the public hearing. Typically, you have the public hearing, leave the record open and vote on it at the next meeting. I am requesting that we suspend that policy and that you vote on it this evening.
And that would, to suspend the policy, I believe that requires a 2/3 vote, which in this case would be 5 out of 7 commissioners. Right? Okay, thanks, Stephen. And then, so if we were to do that, do I have to open the public hearing first and solicit public comment, and then there's someone to make a motion to do that?
I'd recommend to do that.
Okay. All right, great. Before I do that, any questions for Amy regarding this? Bill? Yep.
Amy, on exhibit A, page 2, where you moved some items up, shouldn't those numbers have been changed? The 1 and 2 that are in red line, shouldn't those have gone to 6 and 7?
I'm taking a look. Hang on.
Or it should have been,
Or a new head?
no, indented into underneath 5.
Oh, and dental,
Correct.
so, or
Oh.
A.
Something
And
that's
I-
confusing the way it reads like it is.
I see what you're saying. What we could do is keep that as a 5 and make those A and B
Right, correct.
Would that work?
Yeah, exactly.
and indent them. Yes, I apologize.
Nice catch.
I just thought it looked.
Yeah, no, you're correct.
Then also on, I don't know if on R, how it says transmission facility, maybe bring up a transmission facility onto the line above. I don't know. Trying to make it look cleaner.
Rather than saying transmission facility twice right next to each other, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we could just get rid of a transmission facility is, and just say a group of is that what you'd like to do? Or move that up to R, is that what you're, okay, I'm with you.
Yep, then it flows.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it.
All right,
And I
great.
just wanted to add, and maybe you already said this, Amy, so if you did, sorry if I'm repeating you, but the planning commission did send a favorable recommendation and it passed unanimously.
That is correct.
Yeah, from November 25th.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay. Please do so.
And just so the commission's aware, got Mark here today, and I know I'm noting some of the things that P and Z wants to go back and look at going forward. It's going to be my intention to have Bart help us out and look at the land use code and kind of clean up some of the areas. And so we're noting these things down. So if you guys have additional requests, Amy, we'll make it easy to get a hold of Bart. Yeah, perfect. Want to note that.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Mary.
I'd make a motion to suspend the rules and vote on this item this evening.
How about if let me open the public hearing first, and if there may be folks to do comment, and then we can do that.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Okay, then I will now open this public hearing about the proposed amendment to recently adopted major utility overlay. Is there anyone here in the chamber who would care to come forward and make comment concerning this public hearing? Is there anyone online who is prepared to make comment specifically about this public hearing? If so, please unmute your mic, introduce yourself, and you may speak. All right, it doesn't look like we have anyone here to make public comment, and normally this public hearing will be held open until December 23rd. But Mary has indicated that she'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and vote on this item this evening.
And so this is a motion just to vote on that. So we need this to pass by 5/7 of the commission, and then we make a motion to vote on the actual. Correct. Okay. All right. Second.
I'll second that.
Okay. So I have a motion to suspend rules to vote on this tonight by Commissioner Began, a second from Commissioner Dean. Any further discussion on this? Mike?
Any risk with this? I mean, very, very limited. I mean, proper notice has been provided. I don't believe that are there any application, I mean, this won't impact any applications that are previous or that are currently pending. It doesn't change anything that's already been vested. So limited amount.
Great. All right, then I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands.
Yes.
Always votes no.
All opposed.
Who does not like to suspend the
The
rules?
motion passes 6-1 with Commissioner Clapper in opposition.
Twist a hard line. Twist a hard line.
All right. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve if that's the case.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed changes to Article 3, Section 3.1, 3.2.3 Q and R, and 3.4.8J, Article 4, Section 4.10, major utility overlays, with the additions of Section 4.10.3 development standards.
Thank you, Mary. Oh, yeah.
And Mary, on your motion, did you mean to also incorporate?
With the suggested changes.
And then also add, repeal and replace, correct?
Repeal and replace. That was it.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, the motion.
Yes, the motion that's laid out on the agenda summary major utility, is that item or stated motion number 2, is that the correct one, Mary? Commissioner McGinn, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Mike seconds it. All right, so a motion to approve from Commissioner McGinn, a second from Commissioner McCurdy. Anyone want to add anything? We're calling for a vote. Looks like not. So all those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. And I see Kevin raises his hand, so that passes unanimously. All right, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, and I also just wanted to make an announcement that on that agenda item 3 regarding the Grand County decision on the zoning appeal, that the document that we discussed in that motion has now been uploaded. It can be found on the county website. If you go to the agenda for today's meeting, it will be found under general business action items number 3, and you can click on that. You can read the decision in its entirety. Also, I wanted to make a note that on the last page is the map that's referenced. If you do click on that, it may take a few moments to load. Okay, let's see. Wow, we've been skipping around. So I suppose we are on adoption of the budget. We are on agenda item 8, and that is adoption resolution amending the 2024 Grand County budget and approving the 2025 Grand County budget. And I would assume that Gabe, are you presenting this one?
Yep. Thanks, Sean. So we've discussed this at length in a number of workshops. So none of the information that I'm going to be just breezing through right now will be new. Just an overview of some of the key points. And so I'll start with one of the documents that's included in the agenda packet. Okay. And so that's titled Grand County 2024 Budget Amendment and 2025 Proposed Budget. So that this resolution would serve to both amend the current year budget and approve a budget going into 2025. So the purpose of this document in the packet is to describe important budget features and present some summary and both summary and detailed information. Some key facts and figures about the budget and the beast that is the budget, and some factoids about how many funds there are, very general information about revenues that support it. There's reference to flat revenue projections. Of course, that's a little imprecise. We're using an aggregate revenue projection, growth projection of 0.5%. Using that 3-year revenue growth trend, and then some other metrics and a little table of contents or summary of what is coming next in this document. And so across the funds, the Grand County budget is made up of a number of funds that are that mainly serve to restrict revenues and expenses to specific uses that need to remain restricted. Of course, the general fund number 10 would be the main and largest fund that Grand County is the custodian of, that serves as the clearinghouse for all of its main departments. And so this bar graph shows 24 actuals. So in other words, where we're seeing them in the amendment as it's currently proposed versus the 25 budgeted. And there are some footnotes here that are important to explain some of the oddities, as like the stormwater mitigation fund showing 31,000 only spent and 3 million budgeted. That did indeed start with a budgeted budget more close to what we're starting 2025 with, but it is convention to budget to begin the year budgeting for projects and amending down in the event that those projects don't end up occurring. It helps to streamline the process when those projects are ready to happen. And the same sort of convention typically takes place for Fund 34, the Capital Projects General Fund. Also of note is that the general scale of Fund 47, it shows $4.1 million there for the budget of 2025 for Parks, Trails, and Recreations. And it's just important to note that $2.5 million of that 4.1 is made up of non-department related multimodal path projects, namely paved path maintenance and Spanish Valley Drive pathway project. Okay. And then key general fund expenditures. So this is that Fund 10, as I said. So this is kind of zooming into Fund 10, shows us some context and scale for different departments within the general fund, what their budgeted expenditure, what their actual expenditures are for this year versus what we're budgeting for, what we're proposing to budget for in 2025. And as you can see, there's most of the changes from the blue to the gray, as far as where we see small increases in the gray versus the blue, largely due to the cost of living adjustment that's included in the proposed budget, not due to and not mainly due to departmental expense increases. So it is relatively flat, where you do see larger increases from the blue to the gray, say for IT department. That's largely due to a new position that is being that's approved and proposed in the budget for that department. But yeah, otherwise it's generally just good context and scale here, seeing general fund departments. Key tax revenues. And so this is tax revenue that is dispersed across all the funds here on the left. And so this doesn't.
How excited we are.
This does. The one on the right in particular, I was excited about too. The one on the left doesn't provide any context for where all these revenues go. So as you can see, transient room tax, that's all of the TRT. So that doesn't account for the 3763 split. That just shows that tax revenue that is received amongst all the funds in Grant County. And then, but on the pie chart on the right, it's more specific to showing these revenues on the left, how they plug in to the general fund. And as you can see, one thing that was kind of getting me is like this. I should have knocked this county option sales tax and restaurant and car tax. I should have sandwiched those next to these other three taxes, and then we would have seen that it's pretty close to 3/4 of the general fund revenue is made up of property tax and other sales and use taxes. I thought that was interesting. I'd never seen it in a chart presented that way. And pardon if you want more detail about what miscellaneous means, you would have to go to the detailed budget. It is quite a menagerie of items, and I do hate using words like miscellaneous when we're budgeting. I prefer to be much more precise, but it really is a grab bag of items that we have to include in that type of category for revenue. Okay, key fund balances. So that we've looked at this document before, but just a memorialization of where things are sitting in each fund and their fund balances. And then there's just a really zoomed out fund level budget for consumption. It's just 2-pager. Is just basically showing scale and doesn't really provide any detail as it relates to that. And finally, a department level budget, which is basically the big one that shows every line across all funds, both the 2024 proposed amendments and the 2025 proposed budget. And so we scrolled through that whole document for the public hearing at the last meeting. And then I'll go to one more document that's in the packet, which is proposed budget supporting material. So just additional documentation that I directed the budgeted officer to prepare that, hopefully can continue to help illuminate the budget for the public's consumption, as well as just providing a memorialization of this process as we go along, and touching on some of the items that were decided upon along the way. So those assumptions, considerations, calculations, agreements that led to the creation and ultimately this proposal to adopt. And so, yeah, no new, we didn't go through truth in taxation, no new property taxes, no sales tax increases are built into this 2025 budget. There's that 2.5 cost of living adjustment that is included in the current proposed budget. We discussed the interest allocation policy that was prepared by the treasurer, which is basically there's interest collected from all funds out of the general treasurer's investment fund that the treasurer is the custodian of, and just the policy that we reviewed and that we will eventually adopt officially, but that didn't seem to be any sort of questions. It seemed like a good policy for dispersing that interest to the funds when it's only appropriate and restricted for those funds that we keep in our investment fund. So again, this is a little bit imprecise in language as far as revenues expected to remain flat. There's a slight growth in sales and use taxes that is built into the proposed 2025. But I think that this statement was included just to sort of acknowledge that the approach to this budget, generally had to be sort of conservative as it relates to growing expenses in the face of limited growth in revenues. And Utah State audit findings in 2024 throughout the conversations that we've had. I'm still awaiting full confirmation from the state auditor's office, but as was discussed by commission, the findings are incorporated into the proposed 2025 budget. The big ticket that you might notice on there is right now in the 2025 proposed expenses that had been budgeted in Fund 16 titled Economic Development are now shifted to Fund 23 titled Travel Council. We have some cleanup to do as far as creating new account codes, but I did faithfully transfer the amounts as discussed from Fund 16 to Fund 23, and that was a recommendation by the state auditors. New vehicle leases for 2025 excluded from budget requests and expenses for 2025. And we're going to have more discussion and evaluation regarding countywide regarding vehicles, because as we can see, that becomes a pretty massive cost ongoing and new requests. So we already looked at fund balances. That looks like it was in both. Skip through that. Stephen just included this in here so that there's some documentation regarding his methodology for revenue projection. But overall, the main this is basically how it was brought to the currently considered and entered 0.5% increase for sales and use taxes. There was tacit agreements regarding the following capital projects to be agreed to. These were considered to be urgent and essential, and so they've been built into the budget. They would still have to be considered in the pre-authorized capital project approval list, and otherwise just would have to come back up for commission consideration. So these aren't green lit, any of these projects, but they have been built into the budget. And then the elected official salary survey increase that was just approved in this meeting a couple items ago. As well as we had some discussion about new positions and reclassifications that are in these two tables down here, and also in that pay plan document that was in the agenda. And then a couple other items, agreement to contribute to the EMS ambulance installment payment and off-road ambulance repair, contribution to the Utah Retirement System Tier 2 employee payroll deduction. Those are entered into the 2025 budgets, as well as the county employee cost of living adjustment. That should be 2.5%, not 2/5%. And agreement or an earmark of $100,000 to affordable housing, and a budgeted provision of $1 million to be drawn from the surplus in 2025 due to the historical trend of over budgeting and underspending. And then we also talked about an agreement to, or agreed to include in the budget a spending volume as it relates to traditional paid media, tourism promotion that is on the level recommended by the Travel Council Advisory Board. So yeah, that was the best kind of sum up that we could provide to really touch on a lot of the items that we talked about. But I would say that we've sort of really, we've gotten into it over the course of months now. And, you know, I would, yeah, that's, I guess, all I have to present on at the moment.
Great. Thank you, Gabe. And thanks for the detailed line by line discussion at the last commission meeting as well. I think we've covered this. So Trish.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you mind just giving a very quick synopsis, you know, of the budgeting process, when you begin, the collaboration of individuals that you work with, longer term, and then obviously all the budget workshops? Because it's this last meeting, and if people are tuning in now, they might just say, well, they just ran through this, but I want them to understand the depth that this process goes into.
Stephen, would you be willing to take that question?
Yeah, yeah, I
Great,
would.
thank
I've been working on this for 6 months, so this is not been a rushed process. We really started with a budget estimate back in August, where we worked with all the department heads to come up with budget estimates, and then we created what was called a proposed budget by September 1. Then we spent the month of October and November going through individual budget advisory board meetings. I mean, individual meetings, 2 or 3 or 4 departments at a time on a weekly budget advisory board meeting where they got to present their budget. And I will mention, just anecdotally, that we took a bottom-up approach to budgeting this year. We didn't put many restriction around department heads, because we wanted to see what they really required to run their budget. Now, we did have to do some cutting at the end of this cycle when we realized what our revenues were going to be. But I think it was enlightening to know what gaps may be out there. And I'll admit there's really no gaps that are, you know, are critical. So so again, September and October were the budget advisory board meetings. We presented a proposed budget on November 1 by statute or by the Utah Code. And here we are, you know, from November 1, kind of finalizing this budget to present to you all to adopt the budget by, you know, by mid-December. So yeah, it's been a 6-month process.
So much. And in the last month, I would say we've had many budget workshops, which entailed the entire commission giving feedback to Stephen and Gabe. And so thank you for giving us a synopsis of that process.
Yeah, thanks for all your work, Stephen. You came in late in the process. Looking forward to you being on board for the whole year next year for this. But this is a massive collaborative effort. Of course, I think you and Gabe did the real heavy lifting on this, and it's been an extremely transparent process. And thank you all for sure. Mary?
I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution amending the 2024 Grand County budget amendment and adopting the 2025 Grand County budget.
Thank you, Mary.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner McGann, a second from Commissioner Hedin to accept the budget as presented. Discussion. Bill.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I go back to when we presented this budget to meet the deadline in November, and it was read through line by line for the public, it was determined that we would not speak about this budget line item by line item, that would come up in the future. Now, I agree that we've had months and months of budget advisory board meetings that really boil down to a waste of our time, because we have not sat down on a single budget here and gone through it line by line and had a discussion over the needs of some of these. Has there been a very broad overview? Yes, I think there has. But this commission, I even remember last year, line by line, we went through this budget, and we're not doing that now. We're just asking for a rubber stamp, and I'm unwilling to do that. And there are so many things in this budget that are problems, and I'm curious if these even meet statute, what we have here, because I got 42 pages in your document gate that's loaded on here, and I believe it's about page 3, where it says that we're on page 14 of 96 of this presentation. So I'm wondering where the rest of it is. And if this is all that's here, it isn't what matches when we were in here and you read this off to the public, and we weren't allowed to go through it line by line as we had last year. And there's a huge problem in this budget. There's huge problems in here. And I can't sit here and honestly say that at the budget advisory meetings that we did anything other than hear their presentations. We didn't go through and try and decide whether some of these things were actually important to have or not. And I'm not picking on anyone, but there's holes all over in this, and I would like to go through this budget as a commission line by line. And I really think that we need to. I'm not ready to sign off on this budget. I can't do it, in all honesty. There's just too many problems in here. Too many problems. So where do we start? What do we do here to decide that this document, it doesn't even adjust to the amount of pages in the previous document? I understand that we renamed the one as the state auditor asked us to. I think it went from 23 to 16, but there's nothing now in economic development, but yet we had to do a study in that department to prove how much of their time goes from one to the other. So where did we just totally do away with economic development and come up with a whole bunch of zeros here? I'm not going to vote for this budget, and I'm going to recommend that we open it up in January and redo it, because if we can't have a discussion line by line, what's our purpose here as a commission? To just rubber stamp this? I'm unwilling to do it. And those meetings, they just didn't do it for me. I'm sorry. So if we're not going to talk about this line by line, there's no point in me digging through my paperwork here any further, but there's some real issues in here. And I've got a problem. I don't even remember which department it is. Has $113,000 discretionary fund. And sorry, Quinn, I don't mean to be looking at you. I'll look anywhere. 113. I don't think the governor gets $113,000 discretionary fund that he can't be accountable to. I could be incorrect on that one, but there's some issues in this budget. Where do we go from here?
Let's start with, you said
Bill.
you have what are some huge problems? So let's start with your huge problems.
Was that Stephen that was?
You make a lot of large statements, but I want them backed up. So let's start going.
Well, let's start with the one where it says we got 96 pages in this document.
Yeah, let me, this is Stephen. Bill, we had to download that from Cassell, and then I had to do some manipulation just to put it into a PDF, and Cassell sorted the report by page numbers. So obviously I missed taking out a page number, but to get from Cassell to PDF, that's what that was all about. But it's a full budget. But I'm back with Trish saying, like, let's talk about the problems. I'm kind of surprised that we're talking about problems in the budget at this late a date, with all the meetings we've had, but let's do it.
We did go through these line item by line. It was the last.
It
meeting.
took forever.
It did, but we didn't discuss them. I mean, he read them into the public record, and I think that's good for the public, but we didn't go through these and break any of them
We
out.
certainly went through quite a few of them at
Start
our
on
numerous
page
workshops.
13 of 31 is what it says on the bottom, Steve, and I'm looking at 22-4225-740. Airport contribution, 638. $330,000. Now, I know that we went over the budget with Tammy somewhat, and her budget ended up in the $2 million range. Now, this contribution, I don't know where it came from. It's been zero every year before, and I know that we moved some money around. But there needs to be some explanation on some of these. I go to the discretionary balance, 23-4236.
We're gonna do one at a time. We should do one at a time. So let's go back to your first line.
I just did. Did you get to it?
Trying to respond. Yeah, I mean, he's trying to respond. So let's go back to that line item.
And I'm more than happy to follow along. Is it possible to share so that, because I don't know what number you're
I don't know. I mean, Gabe had it up on the screen a little while ago.
you said
Mine's
page
printed out. I don't.
right,
have a
but
way
you
to
said
share
page
that.
page 13. What fund number are you on?
22-4225-740-000 airport contribution.
So it's two under, it goes Star Hall operations, then contribution to other agencies, and then airport contribution.
Correct.
Okay.
And I just have a question mark. Where is that? There's
The allocation.
previous budgets, and now we've got 638,000 going in there.
It's the allocation of TRCC that's been shifted from the Grand Center to the airport based on the state auditor's findings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question. Then we go down to 23-4236-310-000. The line says professional and. Let's see, in 2022, $7,500 were now just barely shy of $1,200,000 in that line item. And so professional and, I'm just wondering, that to me says that we're using consultants. What are we doing?
So I made an attempt to explain. I do acknowledge that as it appears right now, it's not very clean, but there's a lot of cleanup to do in the transfer of Fund 16 to 23. I can assure you that I faithfully applied the bottom line number that had been discussed and presented as an expense for Fund 16 and transferred it to Fund 23. But because of a new fund being used, there wasn't a line by line translation. So 1199 is where some of that tourism promotion, paid media, and also it's either that line or the rebranding effort might be what is actually included in that line. But I mean, I can, if you can't take my word for it at this point, I respect that given the confusing nature as it's currently presented. But you should take my word for it.
Of course I take your word for it, but there just hasn't been going through this. So if we go to the next page, and I'm not sure who gets a discretionary fund of 113,000. I'm very curious. Of course, that's 23-4236-900-000 discretionary. That concern.
So there are expenses that we discussed for the film commission and for the travel, are we still calling them the Economic Development Department? I suppose we are. That didn't have a clean line already existing in Fund 23. And so I had to consolidate a couple expense requests into one discretionary line for the time being, with the intent to clean up this budget when, as soon as possible.
Okay, and then I go down a few lines to the advertising line that we, again show 971 in 2022 and we're at 1,000,009. Now, everybody knows I'm in favor of more promotional advertising, but it's never been shown what this promotional advertising actually amounts to. Is this going from pond shrimp to something else? Is this actually going to legitimate promotional advertising? I'm just real curious why we haven't gone through some of these. I'm in favor of more advertisement. And this isn't pointed at you, Gabe. This is pointed at the fact that there's a lot of need to dig into this budget for some of these departments. And I can go on and on, but I don't really see the appetite for it. I'm struggling with it, but I really am. And that's just where I'm at on it.
And you were on the advisory committee?
I was on the budget advisory board. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, it might have been a better idea for me to maintain that Fund 16 and just amend this change in 2025 rather than change it in this confusing way. So I'll take the fall on that one. I think that this, as presented, I can understand how there could be question marks. And I look forward to doing everything we can to pull this out and re-present it in a formal public meeting so that we can clean this up.
Yep, Kevin, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to some of the more general points that Bill made. I was also on the budget advisory board and sat through all those meetings. I don't think we're doing things differently this year than we have in past years in terms of scrutiny of individual items. We're of course not going to have a full commission discussion on every item, and instead, there's multiple opportunities for commissioners, including budget advisory board members, to look at things. And if we see something we think merits discussion at the full commission meeting, we flag it, and that happened multiple times during the budget advisory board meetings. And so I think some of this, I think, should have been flagged earlier. We could have had a full commission discussion on it. And we have for various things. We automatically, new positions are in that category. There's a few others as well. It does sound like, though, that this, following the state auditor's advice to shift it over, in hindsight, we maybe should have waited till after we pass the final budget to do that, because it does introduce some confusion. But I do trust Gabe that, even though it looks a little confusing, that in essence, we still have the funding for the economic development department that we, discussed and approved previously. So I feel fine with this process. I do feel like it's a little, if they're individual items, I think it's, the thing to do would have been notify Gabe or the chair that in previous meetings that you wanted this to be on the agenda along with all the other things that we did discuss in detail. So I feel comfortable with the process, and I think in terms of detailed scrutiny, it's at least as good this year as it ever has been in the county, and I think we do a lot better than other counties in that regard.
Mike?
To question the $1 million. Thank goodness we underspent $1 million and we're able to use that into our next fund or into the next year. But I don't like using it as a continual plan. It may not be there next year. That underspend is a good thing, but I hate that it has been a continual underspend over many years, but things cost more now than ever. So.
And yeah, and we did discuss that at a meeting where the average of the last 5 years was millions. So historically, just put it out there, but point taken. Yeah, Bill?
This has nothing to do with trusting your word, Gabe. That's not what I'm questioning here. And I wouldn't want that to be inferred in any way.
All right, anyone else? I'm prepared to vote on this. So there's a motion made to approve by Mary, and I think Trish seconded it. Any last comments before we vote on it? All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. And all opposed. All right, motion passes 5-2 with Commissioners Winfield and McCurdy in opposition. We will move on to, actually, you know what? I'm going to pull agenda item 13, since Mr. Hill is here for that one, and I know he has a long trip home tonight. So we'll pull agenda item 13, approving proposals for airport planning and engineering services in response to RFQs. And Tammy, along with Judd Hill, are presenting this one. Are you ready, Tammy?
Yes.
Great.
It's number 13.
It's number 13.
So the item before you tonight is our a mandate from the FAA that our airport must have a planner and an engineer of record. And, you know, they want us to have one on contract ready to go for issues that may arise. And we can also use them for our projects. And so we went through an RFP process in November, and we received one proposal for planning services, 2 for engineering services. What the one was essentially disqualified for, they weren't qualified, so they were disqualified from the running. So the airport board voted to recommend Lochner. So if you're not familiar, Lochner used to be Armstrong, and Armstrong's been our planners and engineers for the last 38 years, I believe it is. And so airport board is recommending that commission accept the Lochner proposals and sign the consultant agreements. And I'm happy to answer any questions on the process if you have any. I think Judd Hill is there, representing Lochner.
He's with us right here. Off camera. I see Bill had his hand up.
Okay.
First. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I can give a little background on the airport board. There was discussion around it. The other engineer that applied for this was really a mechanical engineer, mostly specializing in HVAC. As to their qualifications, we don't really know, but that wasn't what we were looking for. And I do know that the recommended is every 5 years to put this out for bid or whatever, and to try and keep things running smoothly at the airport. But I'll be honest with you, there's also a huge value in Judd's relationship with the airport and his institutional knowledge of what goes on out there. And there wasn't anybody on the airport board that had any problem in recommending them again because of that long-standing relationship.
Great.
And just to mention, there is no financial obligation to these contracts. They are just simply agreements that that if we have an issue, we can go to them without having to do an agreement every time. And generally, we utilize them for all of our projects. We do have the option of using other consultants for projects, but Lochner has done such a great job in the past. We've never opted to do that. So,
thanks, Tammy. Stephen, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just noting on this that there are some additional edits, so I would ask if there was a motion that it would be contingent on it going through my office to finalize some additional edits that need to be done.
Okay. All right, great.
Question we have 2 motions. One is for planning and one is for engineering.
correct.
Do we want them to be both? Do we want it to be planning and engineering, or just engineering, or just planning?
The contracts have to be separate. I put it in as 2 separate motions.
Okay, so each motion would have to be voted on, so we'd have to take 2 votes on this. Is that the case?
You could just throw an and in after planning services and engineering for up to 5 years in separate contracts, and then contingent on
In separate.
Okay.
Great, thank you. All right.
I'll move to enter into a consultant agreement with Lochner for planning and for engineering service for up to the next 5 years pending legal review.
Thank you. Mike seconds. All right. We have a motion on the table, Commissioner McGann, second from Commissioner McCurdy to approve
Am I
both
gonna get a judge presentation out of this
items.
deal?
I'm here for your questions in case you have any, but,
Okay.
definitely looking
I
forward
didn't
to
want
the
to deny
opportunity.
you, but prepping for 4 hours.
No, I definitely not. It just, I got a lot of exciting projects coming up. It's, Commissioner McMurdy had stated things are getting more expensive. Airports are definitely expensive. It's a great opportunity for the community in that while a lot of times you can rely on grants, the FAA funding cycles are very good. In the case of the airport, for every dollar you spend, you get 19 from the federal government. So they're covering 95% of the projects. So they are larger dollar projects, relatively speaking to some other things within the community. But there is strong support because it is a valuable resource.
Great, thank you. All right, I'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, raise your hands. And that passes. Or is Kevin still with us, or I think he might have left us?
He was gonna stay just to right.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right, so that passes unanimously 6-0. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Congratulations and good luck. Thanks.
All right, we are on to agenda item 9, proposed commission meeting dates for 2025. And Alicia's not here, so are you ready for this one, good, or should I get?
No, I'm absolutely not ready for this.
Okay, so in our packet was the proposed meeting dates for 2025. Most of them are as expected. I actually had a couple of questions on April. So April 1st, is that a primary date or something? I was wondering why that one is scheduled for Wednesday, if anyone knows. I didn't see anything crazy as to why that would be the case. I was wondering if maybe it was the city April something that after. No, not for meetings. The election day is the first Tuesday after Monday. So that couldn't be the election day that Tuesday, because it would be the first Tuesday and it's not after Monday. I just thought our Tuesday. No, our Tuesday could be on the first. We've had plenty of meetings on the first. Yeah. And then the other weird thing about that is that the next one in April is scheduled for the 22nd, but that should actually be the 15th. There are 3 Tuesdays.
Quite a gap.
It is quite a gap. So, other than that, everything's pretty clear. There is another meeting in November on Wednesday, but that is after the election day in November.
Yeah, I definitely remember that one being after the election. I think the April one. When is the primary for the city?
Well, like what Bill just reminded me. So primaries have to be on the first Tuesday after the first Monday, I believe.
I think that's right too.
So that wouldn't apply. I literally can't recall when's Easter. Easter's later.
Easter's the latter part.
Yeah, it's always on a Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying.
They
were moving it around each for me.
Yeah.
We can approve it and just change it.
And flag that. I do remember going over this with Alicia in some detail, but it was probably a month and a half ago.
Right, that's the other thing. And that was that. So that's the 4th Tuesday. Right, and then there are 5 Tuesdays in April, and that last is the 29th. Obviously, we're not meeting that, but I was wondering if why there was a conflict on 15th. I think that is during Easter week, but we've always had. I remember in the past we've had meetings during Easter week on a Tuesday. I don't think that's it.
I was just going to throw in the fact that is Easter Jeep Safari week if everybody's going to leave town.
Except you, Larry, you'll be coming to town.
I'll be coming.
All right, Larry. Yeah, we can amend it. Steve.
Why don't we just post one for every Tuesday in April?
Change which ones you just
cover the fine. Hey, let's move to 4 a month. How about that?
That would probably make them shorter.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, and I apologize. I went over this with Alicia, but it was a month and a half ago, and I know we talked about all of these, but it's off the top of my head. I can't.
Okay. Well, we'll make it. I think there's like some statute.
Yes,
What-
it has to go in the newspaper.
Okay,
So if you guys want to pass it with the caveat that I will check on the April dates with Alicia before we publish it, and then I can just email everyone as to what we settled on and why.
that sounds great. Okay,
Okay with this? Yes.
Trish,
I move to approve proposed commission meeting dates for 2025 with the caveat that the commission administration will check on the April dates.
thank you. Second, Mike.
Taking it.
All right. King of the second over here.
King of the second.
All right, any further discussion on that? Sure, all things will become clear. Anyway, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. And that passes unanimously. On to agenda item 10, ordinance establishing the 2025 consolidated fee schedule and repealing and replacing ordinance number 688. And again, this was Alicia. Why do you,
This is the updated fee schedule. We sent this out to the department heads almost a month and a half ago. There are minimal changes throughout most departments, certainly some small adjustments. The one major adjustment that happened was at the old Spanish Trail Arena, and she's implemented quite a few more fees for her services. She stands by it. Say that.
good for Angie. All right. Those are in the packet. Mike?
I'm all for food truck leases going down, but what was the justification for the fee from $3.25 a square foot to $1.25 a square foot?
Wait, I'm sorry, say that again?
Which page, or whose department airport?
Yeah, 3.06.250 fees for the Canyonlands Regional Airport.
Can you scroll down and see what page you're on?
I can address that, Mike.
Yeah,
if you'd
still
like.
Thanks, Tammy.
Yeah, we lowered that because we don't have any infrastructure in place for food trucks. And so to make it a little bit more appealing and feasible to attract a service like that, we lowered that amount to try to attract that. As of yet, we've had no one sign a lease because of the cost to them to either bring out their water and their generators every day or to put in electric and water and drain lines. So to help with that, we reduce that cost.
And not to keep hitting you with questions here, but the added to the water rates usage rate of $2, is that an addition of $2 per 1,000 gallons, or is that price of 2?
Yeah, so if you read over to the left, there are some hangar owners who are not here year round, and so they use very little water and sewer. And so what I did was I put if you read to the left, if a hangar owner would like to put in a water meter, we can reduce their cost to just the base rate plus that $2. And that gives them 1,000 gallons. Because there are some hangars that fall in that $40 a month category, but they're maybe here once or twice a year. And so if they're willing to put in that water meter, so we can, the goal is to ultimately track who's using what water so we can recoup our costs on that a little bit better. So just some incentive to get some of the existing hangars to put water meters in. as well as give them an option to reduce their costs.
Any other questions on any of the fees? Mike, you got all the notes to stuff down?
No, there
There
was a lot, but our services at OSTA are expanding, so I'm middle of the road on a lot of those. I understand the need for it, but actually I'll reiterate what Quinn said. There were some changes for some like-minded materials out there, or like-used materials, and I would have liked those fees to stay the same regardless of what chair is you, or chair is rented at that same price. There's a couple changes on that, but overall, I do support Angie on a lot of her choices as we're getting allows.
All right. Any other comments or potential motions? Bill?
Yeah, I move to approve the ordinance establishing the 2025 consolidated fee schedule and repealing and replaces ordinance number 688.
Thank you. Second, yes. All right, motion from Commissioner Winfield, a second from Commissioner McCurdy to approve. Any other comments before we vote on this? All right, call for a vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. And that passes 6-0, unanimous. On to agenda item 11, resolution to establish new bylaws for the Economic Opportunity Advisory Board, EOAB. And Ben Holter from our Economic Development Department is presenting this one. Ben?
Howdy.
Hey.
Thanks for having me. Before you are proposed changes to our bylaws. They are minor, but they are very descriptive to avoid what we're dealing with right now, which is just a misunderstanding of state code that governs the existence of this board and allows us to receive our rural county grant funds. We discovered this with working with the state. It's a totally amicable affair, but we just need to remedy this. That way we can move forward. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
I think everything was pretty clear to me in the packet, so thank you. Anyone else have questions for Ben? Bill?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss where you've got the line here, in parentheses, likely Commission Administrator Mark Tynable, but flexible. I really believe that position should be nominated by the commission.
Which can you which section is
It's,
it? Which attachment?
Oh, Steve. It's the recommend below the recommended motion.
On the agenda summary?
And the background, 1A towards the bottom. It's where they're.
Yeah, it says likely
Commission member Mark Tyner, likely but flexible, but I don't like that verbiage to begin with, nor do I think that we should be naming somebody back there, but that the county will appoint someone to that position.
In other words, the commission.
Yes, excuse me.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that at all, Ben?
Sure. So my understanding of policy is that we don't have commissioners sit on these boards in voting roles unless there's a specific statute that calls that out. I'm sure Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong. My general understanding and from observing other boards is that that's not really a thing. Originally, we had our department director serving in that role, and the reason we need to move him out is because you can't have the department director voting on a board, especially a board that theoretically advises them. I don't really see any issue with the commission picking someone. It was discussed that it would be the commission administrator's office just because that seemed like the office in the county that had the capacity to sit on that board and would have the highest level of view of what's going on in our department, and could also represent the county. But I'm absolutely open to whatever the commission would like to move forward.
Do you have any comments? Sorry, I was just gonna squint if you had any comment on
No, Ben and I talked about this briefly, and yeah, it kind of seemed like that was, as far as county departments go, obligating someone to be here, it seemed like a no-brainer kind of for the administrator's office, and we thought the actual administrator, instead of me, I'm willing to do it too, whatever, but we just kind of thought we were gonna get a new administrator, that'd be a good position for.
Sure.
Yeah, but I'm with Ben, I'm open to anything.
And I'll add that I understand your concern about the flexible verbiage, and I will say that is not reflected in the bylaws. The only reason I put it there is because I think the understanding when we discussed this was that Mark would be the person, but if he were absent or unavailable, we could still have someone from your office fill in that role because that role is so important to the function of this board.
Great.
And I'd note the commission's roles on boards are mixed. I mean, take I think Thompson.
It's a special service district.
Sure. But weeds department, for example,
So are you?
Mosquito, I voted. Yeah,
But it's
some are
mixed
voting.
on certain ones. I
Yeah.
think probably the cleanest thing would be to do two-step if you guys want to create the bylaws, whatever you want for the changes for the bylaws, and then how you guys want to fill that vacancy. That's up to you guys.
There already is a commission.
I was gonna say, is there a commission
Yeah.
liaison?
That's right. There is a commission liaison, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just looking for that verbiage in the bylaws. You don't have to. Could quickly pull that up.
Verbiage of what exactly?
A change to a representative from the administrator's office.
Sure. So our bylaws, it's the change reflected in that bylaws, it's not actually going to say that it's going to be the commission administrator. What we do is we elaborate that the department director that has served in that role can't serve in that role. So we create a role for department director, and that is not a voting role. That is not going to be the county representative. The bylaws did not specify who the county representative should be. And generally speaking, my goal is always to maintain language that aligns with the code as much as possible. So I would say that's the reason I didn't elaborate further.
I spoke with Colette about this and she recommended slowing down a little bit and possibly looking this over and working on it next month. She did say that the reporting that was required on July 31st was part of the reason that this was pushed forward right now, but that she was fine with waiting until January. So it's state statute that is moving the director of EDD out of a voting position. It's not our bylaws, it's meeting state statute. And so the board across, I mean, it's just a little bit vague in state statute and we've kind of overloaded the board. So I'm just recommending that we table this and we come back to it in January.
Could I understand what Colette's comments were on why we should hold back on this? Because we've been working very closely with that office and I have not received that direction.
Almost every meeting.
All I'm doing is that I reached out to her because I was concerned and confused about it. And she said there's no problem with slowing down and looking at this next year.
Okay.
In January. As to why, she was just agreeing with me that there was a little bit of ambiguity maybe here, that there's some issues between state statute and what we've predominantly had on that board, and that it's heavy with voting members that might not be necessary, and just plenty of room there for looking it over. And we can wait and do it. I mean, if you want to vote and push it through now, or we look at the bylaws and try and bring it into alignment in the next year, I'm fine with it either way. I'm suggesting we table it.
Is there a funding component that is there a state imposed deadline that we need to do this by in order to receive continued funding from this program?
I don't know. That feels like we're testing something. They say no right now. But I don't know, if we draw this out to June, they might decide not to give us our award at that point.
But there's not something that is pending like before the end of the year.
No,
that we're not going to get.
It's not pending by the end of the year. The reporting was due on July 31st. Why it's just now being got to, nobody's totally sure. But one more month is not going to hold it up.
Can you what reporting you're talking about that was due in July?
The reporting on the grants that were received, there were two of them. One went to the daycare and the other went to
the Chamber
of Commerce, and there was reporting due on those July 31st. And that's one of the things that Colette stressed, was that we're now going to be distributing that money.
Mm-hmm.
And in such a short time period, the reporting will then be due again in July 31st. So there's just, it sounds like that it got missed, and I don't know why it got missed.
Well, so to clarify, when we're talking about grants, there's proposal and there's reporting. So reporting generally refers to a grant that has been executed. So this grant has not been dispersed yet. Right. And the two sums you're talking about are the proposed grant. So if we're talking about the proposal, I submitted the proposal within my first 3 days on the job, and my understanding was that that came within the deadline that the governor's office asked for. If there was a report from our previous fiscal year's grant that came in late, I don't know about that, but again, I have not been told that that is an issue. And I think that to your concern that there are some ambiguities in state code and our bylaws that we might want to resolve in the future, a lot of hours have been spent on this very task, which is to resolve those ambiguities. We've worked with the governor's office, and for example, the question of workforce development representative, that language is included because we've spoken with James Dix at the governor's office. And so the goal of this is to remove ambiguity where the state code is ambiguous. There's nothing I can do about ambiguous state code, but I've worked very hard to understand it with the office.
Stephen had something he wanted to add.
Yeah, I would just note if we want to take additional time, then we could get some clarity from the state if they like to see commissioners generally on this board, or if they would rather have administrators, or if they have any in between. I think that's something that we can do in the interim between now and a subsequent meeting. I don't see the harm in allowing either economic development, or whatever they're called now, my office or a commissioner reaching out and handling that. I think if that's a desire that the commission would like to see and to write it in the bylaws to have a commissioner sit on it or a different representative, then I think it would be nice to have some clarity as what the standard practice is. And I don't have that at this time.
I see some value in that.
Any known legislation coming out to eliminate some of these ambiguities?
The legislation
Of
for
the 500.
the legislation for this piece in particular was updated within the last year to year and a half, which is one of the reasons why this board was already changed this year to reflect the name change from development to opportunity. I don't know if they're going to change the statute, but I would imagine they're not going to touch what we're talking about because I just don't think it's high on their list. It's just a list of people that are supposed to be on the board.
Anyone else?
I guess I'm wondering, Bill, why, if you're having these questions, why aren't you reaching out to Ben and Ben? Why are we going above them? It seems more efficient to be talking to our employees that are on the ground instead of going above them. I guess I'm confused about your process. Well, we hire really good people, and you know, I really respect this department and the individuals that are in this department. And I think if you have questions, we should be dealing with the people that we hire and train and trust.
Yeah, just a note on that. It's again, and Quentin can weigh in on this. I think there's always a risk of encouraging commissioners to directly communicate with staff a few levels down instead of going through the comm admin's office and directing them to communicate with people. I don't want that necessarily. I don't think that's a precedent. I don't know. That's he's called.
I don't want to speak out of turn for our commission administrator because he's new, but also I do think that he is very on board with things coming through the commission administrator's office. I think that's kind of the process.
Yeah, that's
Mary?
say, I have liaison on this board, and bylaws have been discussed a lot, and like Ben said, they work incredibly closely with the state. The state is on almost every single one of our meetings. That Colette is right there answering questions, right there advising us. And so if there's a problem postponing it, that's fine. But for myself, I'm comfortable with what is here right now. It makes sense to me to have a commission administrator be the person who's on the board. The commission administrator knows what's going on in all the departments. It's where all of the entire otherwise staff member are point. No, somebody from one department doesn't know what the other department is doing. That's the administrative part. So I guess I see it as being a pretty simple person to assign to be on board. But I also recognize this is not like a project that's just happened. It worked. Mostly.
If I could just add, I'll just, this is the last piece I want to add here. My goal with this item is to just provide it in a very, I think this is a very objective move. We're just trying to clarify bylaws so we can do what this board is meant to do. If the commission's not in line with that, then we're absolutely glad to have more discussions. But if we are working with the state and the commission is working with the state, we should, I think, determine the proper avenues of communication, whoever that is, so that we're not duplicating and negating our work. Because I work closely with Colette too, and I believe you that she's telling you this, but this is the first that I've heard of it, and that's not the way we want to be working around here, just with any of our stakeholders.
Is that a recommendation to me, or are you reprimanding me? I'm curious.
I'm not reprimanding you. I'm just looking for open avenues of communication, whatever way they're appropriate. I just want to ensure that we're all speaking to each other.
Thank you. And I'm more than willing to work this out with admin. I'm simply recommending that we move this to January, that we table it for now and work through it, because I could be misconstruing what Colette said as well, and there's room to move it. There's room to slow down and find out, because why rush it?
I think the point, sorry. So if we table it, who's gonna find out? You want the staff that we hired to find out, or
they turn it over to admin? We're all, I don't mind making another phone call, and I don't mind if we have the county attorney.
I think if we're gonna table it, I think we should have a plan for what's gonna happen.
Microphone. Do you want to make a motion, Mike?
I would double check and a motion. Okay. We don't know of any problems that we're gonna have postponing it. There's no hanging over the head there.
I don't think there's any big plans over the next 2 weeks. I think there's lots of holidays. 3 weeks.
Would love to make the motion, we table this discussion pending admin's discussion, or decision pending admin's discussion.
Either just let it die without a motion, you could move to postpone it, you could recommend who you'd like to see carry this forward.
Why specifically are we postponing it again? Can you give me specifics as to why we're postponing this? Bill? Can you give me specifics as to why we're postponing it?
Already laid it all out.
Microphone.
I don't think
Please
you
have
have.
an argument against it, make the motion and vote on it.
I just want to know what the specific contention is. You said you've spoken to Coley, but you haven't said the specific issue, so can you outline those?
I have already.
Not really.
So Mike, you made a motion to table.
Postpone until next.
Postpone until next. Okay.
And keep it up.
Is anyone going to second?
Does that hit them? Oh, second.
Bill's going to second. All right.
And you're saying that you want admin to move it through the next process? Is that what you're
I would
outlining?
like the decision. I would like the information to come from the calls,
Okay.
and I know the time constraints that our
Oh, it's fine.
Mark has,
I'm just,
but I would like to give Mark.
Perhaps restating it to be that you're moving to postpone it and request that commission administration, however they want to handle it, follow up to get some additional information on this particular.
As said.
I think this is an interesting discussion. I looked at this.
There was so much question.
I thought this was going to be an easy one. Apparently I was wrong. My thinking of this is that it sounds like the board and everyone has spent a lot of time on this. to me, the obvious choice is the county administrator for reasons Mary stated. I'm not sure who else would make a good representative on here, and I'm totally cool with just with passing the motion as it is. So I would not support a tabling measure. But I'd be happy to call for a vote on that as the motion was made. Yeah, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to postpone, raise your hand. All right, and all of. Okay.
Well, it might matter. So you got three, and if, okay.
All right, all opposed. So the motion fails 3-3 with Commissioners Hadler, McGann, and Hadid.
So nothing
in
happened.
opposition
On that particular.
on that one. So if someone is welcome to make a motion to.
Kevin, get back on. Somebody can make a separate motion.
Yes, someone could make a separate motion, but it can't be me.
Chair.
Mary?
I make a motion to approve the resolution to establish the new book bylaws for the Economic Opportunity Advisory Board.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
And noting in that the intent was to repeal and replace resolution 3382.
Right. Thank you. There it is.
There it is. Thanks. All right, so Mary made the motion to approve and Trish seconded it. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. All opposed. Motion passes 4-2 with Commissioners Winfield and McCurdy in opposition. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you all for your time.
On to agenda item.
I want for future considerations, next time Ben comes, because he's set for this entire meeting, I want his agenda to be closer to the top.
I enjoy listening to you also. I don't know. Not here in the back.
As admin, I'm making no promises.
You're making no promise.
Zero promises.
All right, on to agenda item 12. This is the last of our general business action items before we get to the consent agenda. Renewal of Grant County / City of Moab ILA for trails, and Maddie has been waiting patiently also. So welcome, Maddie.
Okay, hopefully an easy one. So in 2018, before we existed as a department, but we still existed as an organization, we worked with the city and they drafted an interlocal agreement that kicked off in 2019. It's now expired, and so we want to renew it with a few modifications. And so this interlocal agreement is a transfer of funds from the city to the county to help pay for non-motorized trail development and maintenance. And the changes are kind of clarifying the language. The way it was written before, it actually was a bit too restrictive on which areas we could work. For example, it seems like the city's intent was for us to be able to work on pipe dream and have that qualify in the interlocal agreement. But actually, if you look at the boundaries on pipe dream, it's only certain chunks are in the city, and then they're all in like different jurisdictions. And so it was just a bit challenging for us to figure out like which area we were working on if it applied to this contract. So this basically changes the language a little bit, which Stephen helped with a lot to kind of include the trails that were intended, and then also leave it a little bit flexible since it's a multi-year plan, so that if there's new trails built in the future that connect to city neighborhoods, those will be covered. And then it raises the amount from $30,000 a year to $33,000 a year, with an option to increase a certain percentage every year. And then it also expands the scope to include the educational efforts, specifically at like the Mill Creek Power Dam trailhead where we have trail ambassador staffed.
Awesome.
And within that fiscal impact, is the city, the fiscal impact is dedicated to us. We're paying.
They give us money,
50%.
yes.
They give
They're
us
giving
money.
us money.
Yeah, that's why I said it's maybe an easier one than this one.
And this year they were, like you said, they're
That's
giving
right.
instead of 30,000, it's 33,000.
Yeah.
10%.
You're going, Mike.
Okay.
And I wanted to offer my thanks to David Everett and Michael Black and Joette as well for working with us on this and increasing their contribution. That's super helpful.
No, absolutely. I think this is one of those great places that we can say we work very well with the city. I was just on KZMU with Joette yesterday. We were talking about kind of a year in review and stuff the city and the counties collaborated on. Since this is one of the things that we have, and as a frequent user of the Pipe Dream Trail, I was pretty pleased to see that trail did get just destroyed by the floods. And I ride that very frequently, and I see a lot of users on that, especially people in the Mountain View neighborhood get up there and utilize that trail. A lot of people walk their dog on it, mountain bike, jog, etc. And I saw this on the agenda. So this weekend I went out and rode the whole Pipe Dream Trail, and it is
good.
amazing shape. You guys did a great job. So
I actually do have just a few numbers, not to bore you guys with numbers, but I know Pipe Dream's a special interest. And so when we were talking with the city too, I mean, Pipe Dream's a challenge because if there is a big weather event, you know, it's on that cliff face, it's prone to damage, but it's also, I mean, it's not just mountain bikers who use it, right? It's like people from the Mountain View neighborhood, dog walkers, like there's just always tons of folks using that trail. So to get it back into shape, I just have those numbers for you guys. It was 220 hours about of staff hours. And then we supervised volunteers who contributed another 600 hours. So it was a pretty big effort to get it back into
it was worth it.
Condition.
Definitely. Now that trail is very, very popular. Trish?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the renewal of the Grand County and City of Moab interlocal agreement for trail operations.
Thank you. Kevin? All right, I have a motion from Trish to approve, and Evan seconded that. Any further discussion on this one? Great. All right, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. All opposed? You abstaining, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
You don't
Bad.
Not you.
He's not mad at you.
Oh, okay.
Trust me.
All right, so the motion passed 5-0 with Commissioner McCurdy abstaining. Thanks, Maddie.
Thanks, Daddy.
All right, we'll move on. We're at the end of our regular agenda action items. We're on to our consent agenda. And oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll just ask to remove that item from the agenda.
Yes, I will remove that item from the agenda. Thanks. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Bills in there.
Yeah.
Okay, the consent agenda consists of approval of meeting minutes. Sorry, I'm kind of off the back here. There we go. Approval of meeting minutes from the November 15th regular Grand County Commission, or the October 15th regular Grand County Commission meeting, the November 1st special Grand County Commission meeting, the regular meeting on November 6th, the Board of Canvassers meeting, as well as the budget workshop from November 18th, the November 19th Grand County CDBG public hearing, and the November 19th regular Grand County Commission meeting, and also the November 25th budget workshop. It also consists of the regular payment of bills, total bills in the amount of $1,084,844.75. Total payroll in the amount of $266,192.63 for combined bills and payroll in the amount of $1,351,037.38. We also have a contract with the Utah Office of Tourism for the Utah Cooperative Marketing Program. We have the BLM land use authorization, USGS gauge for North Fork Mill Creek. We have the letter requesting permission to stage a SAR trailer at Sand Flats Recreation Area. We have revised fiscal year 25 cooperative agreement between the DNR Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, known as FFSL in Grand County, Noxious Weeds Department. We have the unanimous Planning Commission appointment. We have the Crux Academy Second Amendment to the contract. And we have a unanimous appointment to the Thompson Special Service District Board of 2 members. And finally, we have firewall leasing.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thanks, Trish. Bill seconds. All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, raise your hands. And that passes unanimously 5-0.
Mind if I make a quick comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's really great to see this North Fork USGS gauge going in. You know, up until now, we have Pack Creek, we have Mill Creek, various positions, but we don't have any gauge on the North Fork. And so having that gauge will at least allow us some understanding of water coming out of there. We know that we had the major flooding a couple years ago. It really came out of the North Fork. So we didn't have any idea of what was coming. So it's going to help a lot.
Great. Mike?
Talk to you about Crux tomorrow. Thanks. Urgently see that.
All right. We just passed the consent agenda 5-0. So I would entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss purchase, exchange, or lease of real property as well as pending litigation.
So said.
Thank you, Mike. All right, motion by Commissioner McCready, second from Commissioner Hedin. All those in favor going into closed session, and that passes 5-0. Thank you. Sure, absolutely.
I was like, yeah, thank you.